Imagine a force so powerful that it could tear apart the very fabric of reality. A force that doesn't just push the universe outward but accelerates its expansion to the point of destruction. What if I told you that scientists believe such a force might exist, and it could mean the end of everything we know? This isn't science fiction, it's the terrifying possibility known as the phantom energy hypothesis. If it's real, then the universe isn't just expanding, it's heading toward a catastrophic fate, one where even atoms themselves could be ripped apart. But before we dive into this unsettling theory, let's take a step back. The universe is expanding, we've known this for a while. It was first discovered by Edwin Hubble in the 1920s when he noticed that galaxies were moving away from us, and the farther they were, the faster they seemed to be moving. This led to the realization that space itself is stretching. But something strange happened in the late 1990s. Scientists expected that gravity would eventually slow down this expansion. Instead, observations from distant supernovae revealed the opposite. The universe's expansion was accelerating. This was a shock. What could be causing this? That's where dark energy comes in. Dark energy is the name given to whatever force is driving this acceleration, but the truth is, we still don't know exactly what it is. The leading explanation is that it's a property of space itself, meaning that as the universe grows, more dark energy appears, pushing everything apart even faster. It accounts for roughly 70% of the universe's total energy content, yet it remains one of the biggest mysteries in physics. And this is where things get really weird. The phantom energy hypothesis is a specific kind of dark energy, one that doesn't just push the universe apart but does so with increasing intensity. If dark energy follows this phantom model, then over time, its effects would become so extreme that even the fundamental forces holding matter together wouldn't be able to resist. This means that galaxies, solar systems, planets, and even atoms themselves could be shredded apart in what scientists call the Big Rip. To understand why this would happen, we need to look at something called the equation of state, which describes how dark energy behaves. Normal dark energy has an equation of state parameter, often represented by the symbol W, that is around -1. But phantom energy has a value of W that is less than -1. This difference is crucial because it means that instead of dark energy maintaining a steady force, it actually increases over time. The lower the value of W, the more destructive phantom energy becomes. If this hypothesis is correct, then at some point in the distant future, the expansion of the universe will become so extreme that even the smallest particles will be torn apart. First, galaxy clusters will disintegrate as the space between them stretches too fast for gravity to keep them bound together. Then, individual galaxies will break apart, followed by stars being ripped from their orbits. Planets, moons, and asteroids won't just drift away, they'll be shredded by the relentless expansion. And then, in the final moments, the forces holding atoms together, the strong and weak nuclear forces, will be overwhelmed. Matter itself will cease to exist. The terrifying part? We don't know for sure if this will happen. The universe's fate depends on the true nature of dark energy, which remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in physics. Some models suggest that dark energy will remain constant, leading to an endless but relatively peaceful expansion. Others propose a big freeze, where the universe continues expanding forever, but at a slower rate. But if phantom energy is real, then a big rip scenario could be inevitable. Right now, scientists are trying to determine which of these possibilities is correct by studying the way the universe expands over time. The problem is, dark energy is incredibly difficult to study because it doesn't interact with matter in any detectable way. Unlike dark matter, which we at least know exists due to its gravitational effects, dark energy remains elusive. Observations from telescopes like the Hubble Space Telescope and future missions such as the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope aim to measure the expansion of the universe with greater precision, helping us narrow down the possibilities. But what if we do confirm that phantom energy is real? If W is truly less than -1, then we're on a countdown to destruction. The only question would be when. Some estimates suggest that if the Big Rip scenario were to occur, it might happen tens of billions of years from now. But there's no guarantee, it depends on the exact nature of dark energy. If the rate of expansion continues to accelerate, the timeline could be much shorter. So, is there anything we can do about it? Unfortunately, no. Unlike other cosmic threats, such as asteroid impacts or even the eventual death of the Sun, phantom energy isn't something we could ever hope to counteract. It's not a physical force that we can block or manipulate, it's a fundamental property of space itself. If it exists, then the fate of the universe is sealed. But here's the truly mind-bending part. Some physicists suggest that if phantom energy is real, it could mean that our understanding of the laws of physics is incomplete. It might hint at new physics beyond what we currently know, something that could change our entire view of the universe. Could it be tied to quantum mechanics in ways we haven't yet discovered? Could it be linked to hidden dimensions or even parallel universes? The more we learn about dark energy, the stranger it becomes. Some theories suggest that dark energy could fluctuate over time, meaning that the Big Rip scenario might not be inevitable after all. Others propose that dark energy might eventually reverse, causing a big crunch, where the universe collapses in on itself, leading to a possible rebirth of the cosmos. And then there's the even more bizarre possibility. What if phantom energy is an illusion? What if our measurements of the universe's expansion are incomplete or misinterpreted? Some alternative theories suggest that what we perceive as dark energy could actually be the result of interactions with other universes or unknown aspects of gravity. But if the phantom energy hypothesis turns out to be correct, then we are living in a universe with an expiration date. Everything we see, everything we know, will one day be destroyed, not by an outside force, not by a cosmic collision, but by the universe itself. And that raises one final, unsettling question. If the universe can end this way, does that mean it has happened before? Could our universe be just one in a cycle of countless others, each one expanding, ripping apart, and starting anew? The answer to that remains one of the greatest mysteries in science. But one thing is certain, if phantom energy is real, then the universe is not just expanding. It's racing toward a fate more extreme than anything we've ever imagined. And all we can do is watch as the clock ticks down. If the universe is truly heading for a big rip, then the implications stretch far beyond just the destruction of galaxies and atoms. It forces us to confront a fundamental question. Why does the universe behave this way in the first place? Why would a force like phantom energy exist at all? And most importantly, does this mean that the universe itself is doomed to a fate we can never escape? To understand this better, we need to look at the very nature of space and energy itself. In physics, energy is typically something that follows rules, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. But dark energy, and especially phantom energy, seems to break all of our usual expectations. Unlike gravity, which pulls things together, phantom energy works in the exact opposite way. It pushes space apart, and instead of weakening over time, it grows stronger. This is completely different from anything we've observed before in the universe. One possible explanation is that phantom energy might be tied to the vacuum of space itself. In quantum physics, even what we think of as empty space is not truly empty. It is filled with virtual particles popping in and out of existence, and strange quantum fluctuations that we are only beginning to understand. Some scientists believe that dark energy is linked to this vacuum energy, that space itself has an intrinsic energy that causes expansion. But phantom energy takes this a step further, suggesting that this vacuum energy is somehow unstable or increasing over time, leading to the runaway expansion. If this is true, it raises another question: what determines the amount of dark energy in the universe? Right now, we don't have a definitive answer. But one of the biggest mysteries in physics is why the energy density of dark energy has the specific value that it does. If it were slightly higher, the universe might have torn itself apart already. If it were lower, the expansion of the universe might have slowed down or even reversed. The fact that we exist in a universe with this precise balance is either an incredible coincidence or evidence of something deeper going on. Some physicists speculate that the reason dark energy has this specific value is because of the anthropic principle. This idea suggests that the laws of physics must be the way they are because if they were different, life, and observers like us, wouldn't exist to notice them. In other words, we happen to live in a universe where dark energy allows for galaxies, stars, and planets to form, because if we didn't, we simply wouldn't be here. But this explanation, while intriguing, doesn't tell us why dark energy is increasing over time. That's where more radical ideas come into play. Some theories suggest that our universe is just one of many, a part of a multiverse where different regions of space might have different physical laws. In some universes, dark energy might be weaker or non-existent, leading to a completely different kind of cosmos. In others, phantom energy could be even stronger, causing them to rip apart far sooner than ours. If this is the case, then the fate of our universe might simply be a random outcome, dictated by where we happen to exist in this vast multiverse. But there's another possibility, one that is even more unsettling. What if phantom energy isn't a natural feature of the universe, but rather the result of an unknown force or interaction that we haven't yet discovered? Some physicists have suggested that dark energy might not be a fundamental property of space at all, but instead, the effect of an unseen force acting on the universe. This could mean that phantom energy is actually caused by something else, perhaps an interaction with a hidden dimension, a previously unknown particle, or even the influence of another universe leaking into ours. If any of these ideas are true, then the consequences are profound. It would mean that the expansion of the universe, and its ultimate fate, isn't just a passive process dictated by simple physical laws. Instead, it could be the result of an underlying mechanism that we have yet to uncover. And if that's the case, then it might be possible, however unlikely, to change it. Right now, this is purely theoretical. But if scientists could one day determine the true nature of dark energy and its connection to phantom energy, it might open the door to something we can't even imagine: the ability to influence the fate of the universe itself. Could there be a way to slow down the expansion? To stabilize dark energy? To prevent the Big Rip? These questions seem impossible to answer now, but then again, so did the idea of an accelerating universe just a few decades ago. The search for answers continues, with new telescopes and experiments aiming to study dark energy in greater detail. The Euclid mission, the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, and the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope are all designed to map the expansion of the universe and gather data that could help us understand whether we are truly headed for a Big Rip. But until we have concrete answers, we are left with the unsettling possibility that the universe is on a path toward destruction, one that we are powerless to stop. And yet, there's still one more mystery that lingers. If phantom energy is real, and if the universe is truly destined to be torn apart, then what happens after? Does existence simply end? Or could something else emerge from the destruction? Could the death of one universe lead to the birth of another? Some theories suggest that extreme expansion could create conditions similar to the Big Bang, effectively restarting the universe in an endless cycle. Others propose that the end of the universe might be linked to the birth of new universes elsewhere in the multiverse. But for now, these are just speculations. The only thing we know for certain is that the universe is expanding, and that expansion is accelerating. Whether or not phantom energy is responsible is a question we have yet to answer. But if it is, then we are living in a universe with a countdown timer, one that we can't see, one that we can't stop, but one that is ticking down nonetheless. If phantom energy is real and the universe is on a countdown to destruction, then we have to consider one of the biggest questions of all: what does this mean for life itself? Right now, life as we know it is bound by the laws of physics. We exist because the universe has the right conditions for atoms to form, for stars to shine, and for planets to develop stable environments where life can thrive. But if phantom energy continues to grow stronger, those very conditions will be stripped away one by one, leaving nothing but an endless void where nothing can exist. At first, this might seem like a distant problem, something so far in the future that it barely matters. But if phantom energy follows the predictions of the Big Rip model, then the universe's destruction might happen much sooner than expected. Some calculations suggest that the Big Rip could occur in as little as 22 billion years. That might sound like a long time, but in cosmic terms, it's shockingly brief. The universe is already 13.8 billion years old, which means that, if these calculations are correct, we could be well past the halfway point of cosmic existence. This raises an even deeper question. Is there any way for life to survive beyond the Big Rip? If the fundamental fabric of the universe is being torn apart, then no amount of technology, no level of intelligence, and no type of civilization could escape it, at least, not within our current understanding of physics. But what if our understanding of survival itself needs to change? One radical idea is that if life cannot exist in a universe with runaway expansion, then the only way to survive is to leave this universe entirely. This sounds impossible, but some physicists have speculated that advanced civilizations, if they exist, might find a way to transition into a different region of the multiverse. If the Big Rip is truly an unstoppable force, then an intelligent species might attempt to artificially create a bridge between universes, effectively escaping before the destruction begins. This concept is purely hypothetical, but it ties into some of the most mind-bending ideas in physics, such as the possibility of hidden dimensions or quantum fluctuations allowing for new universes to emerge. If a civilization could manipulate these properties, they might not need to outrun the Big Rip in a traditional sense. Instead, they could move beyond it entirely, entering a state of existence that is no longer bound by the expanding universe at all. But this raises another possibility, one that is even stranger. What if the Big Rip isn't the end, but a transformation? If space itself is being stretched infinitely, what happens to the energy and information within it? Some theories suggest that when the universe is torn apart, it could create conditions similar to those of the Big Bang, triggering the birth of a new universe. If that's the case, then could something, some remnant of our reality, persist into the next cosmic cycle? There's no clear answer, but some physicists argue that information, in some form, might be preserved. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle that suggests information cannot be truly lost, even when objects are destroyed. If this principle applies on a cosmic scale, then it's possible that traces of our universe could survive in whatever comes next. The patterns of matter, the structure of space-time, perhaps even the very laws of physics, could be imprinted onto the next reality, influencing the birth of a new cosmos. And if that's the case, then the Big Rip might not be the ultimate end. Instead, it could be part of a cycle we don't yet understand, a transition from one state of existence to another. For now, all of this remains speculation. We don't yet know if phantom energy is real, or if the universe is truly doomed to this fate. But the fact that such a possibility even exists forces us to confront some of the deepest questions about existence. Is the universe a temporary phenomenon, destined to vanish? Or is there something beyond the end, something we can't yet perceive? The search for answers continues, and as our understanding of physics deepens, we may one day find clues that reshape everything we thought we knew about reality. Until then, we remain in a universe that is expanding, accelerating, and perhaps, counting down to an ending that we can only begin to imagine. If the universe is truly on a countdown to destruction due to phantom energy, it forces us to confront an unsettling truth. Everything we know and understand, from the smallest atom to the largest galaxy, may be temporary. This goes beyond the eventual fate of stars burning out or black holes evaporating over trillions of years. The Big Rip suggests that even space itself is unstable, and that the very fabric of reality could unravel. But if that's the case, then we have to ask, is there any way to predict what comes next? One of the biggest questions in physics is whether the laws of nature are absolute, or if they can change. If the universe is being torn apart by phantom energy, it could indicate that the fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, and even the strong and weak nuclear forces, are not as constant as we assume. This is a terrifying thought because everything we observe, from the motion of planets to the chemistry of life, depends on these forces remaining stable. If they can shift, then the destruction of the universe might not just be an end to space. It could be an end to physics itself, rewriting reality in ways we can't comprehend. Some physicists speculate that if the universe ends in a Big Rip, a new universe might emerge with completely different physical laws. Imagine a universe where gravity is repulsive instead of attractive, or where time flows in reverse. Could such a universe even support the formation of stars and galaxies? Or would it be a chaotic, unrecognizable void where nothing can exist? If our universe is just one of many in a larger multiverse, then each new universe spawned from a previous one might have its own unique set of rules, making every cosmic cycle distinct from the last. But if that's the case, then what determines the laws of physics in the first place? This is one of the deepest mysteries in science. Are the laws of nature truly fundamental, or are they simply the result of cosmic conditions that change from one universe to another? If the latter is true, then it suggests that even our most basic understanding of reality is only temporary, just a product of our specific moment in the cosmic timeline. This idea ties into a concept known as the landscape of string theory. According to this theory, there are countless possible ways that the fundamental forces of nature could be arranged. Some regions of the multiverse might have strong gravity, making it impossible for galaxies to form. Others might have entirely different particles, preventing the existence of atoms and molecules. Our universe, then, might just be one possibility among an infinite number of others, and its eventual destruction might simply be a transition into a new configuration. If this is true, then the Big Rip might not be an end, it might be a transformation. The universe we know could be breaking apart, but in doing so, it might give rise to something new. And if some information is preserved in this transition, then the structure of our universe, perhaps even the essence of life itself, could carry over in ways we can't yet understand. But here's the most unsettling part. If the universe is accelerating toward destruction, then that means we are living in a time when the countdown is already underway. The universe is expanding at an ever-increasing rate, and unless something changes, that expansion will eventually reach the point where it becomes unstoppable. Is there anything we can do? Right now, the answer seems to be no. We have no control over the expansion of the universe. But if our understanding of physics deepens, and if we discover the true nature of dark energy, we might one day unlock the ability to manipulate the fundamental forces of the cosmos. It sounds like science fiction, but so did the idea of an expanding universe just a century ago. For now, all we can do is observe. Future telescopes and experiments will help us determine whether the expansion of the universe is truly accelerating toward a big rip, or if something else is at play. Perhaps we will discover that phantom energy isn't real, and that the universe will instead expand forever, at a steady rate. Or maybe we will find that dark energy behaves in ways we don't yet expect, leading to an entirely different fate. But if the big rip is real, then we are witnessing the early stages of a process that will eventually tear the universe apart. Every moment that passes brings us closer to an ending we cannot escape. And the most haunting question of all is this: if the universe does reach its breaking point, will anything remain to witness what comes after? The deeper we dive into the concept of the Big Rip and phantom energy, the more unsettling the questions become. If the universe is truly on a path of unstoppable expansion, then everything, every planet, every star, every galaxy, is ultimately doomed. But what if there is more to this than just destruction? What if the very nature of existence is tied to these cycles of creation and annihilation? To fully grasp what's at stake, we need to understand just how strange and counterintuitive phantom energy really is. In most physical systems, energy is conserved, meaning it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. But phantom energy behaves in a way that defies this principle. As the universe expands, the amount of phantom energy increases, which means more and more energy is being added to the system with no clear source. This is completely different from dark energy as we currently understand it, which is thought to remain constant over time. This raises an alarming question: where is this extra energy coming from? If energy cannot be created or destroyed, then phantom energy should not be able to grow without limit. And yet, if the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate, this is exactly what appears to be happening. Could this mean that our understanding of energy itself is incomplete? Or could it suggest that there is another hidden force at play, something beyond our current models of physics? Some physicists speculate that phantom energy might not be a new form of energy at all, but rather a sign that our universe is interacting with something outside of itself. If our universe is part of a larger multiverse, then perhaps phantom energy is the result of a connection to another reality. In this scenario, the accelerating expansion we observe might not be caused by something within our own universe, but rather by an external influence, a force leaking in from another dimension or parallel cosmos. This idea is highly speculative, but it aligns with some of the more radical theories in modern physics. For example, in string theory, the universe is thought to be embedded within a higher dimensional space. If this is true, then it's possible that what we perceive as phantom energy is actually the effect of our universe being stretched or influenced by another layer of reality. But let's assume for a moment that phantom energy is real and that the Big Rip is inevitable. What happens as we approach this catastrophic event? At first, the expansion of the universe will continue to accelerate in a way that seems harmless. The distances between galaxies will increase more and more, making them appear fainter and more isolated. Eventually, the cosmic horizon, the limit of what we can see, will shrink, and galaxies will begin to vanish from view as space expands faster than the speed of light. But then things take a terrifying turn. A few billion years before the final moment, the effects of phantom energy will reach the scale of individual galaxies. The gravitational bonds that hold the Milky Way together will weaken, and over time, the galaxy itself will start to break apart. Stars, once bound by the pull of gravity, will begin to drift away from each other. The night sky, if there's anyone left to see it, will become darker and emptier as the stars are scattered across an ever-expanding void. As time goes on, the destruction becomes more personal. A few million years before the Big Rip, the solar system itself will start to unravel. Planets, which have spent billions of years locked in stable orbits around the Sun, will be pulled away as space itself expands beneath them. Eventually, even the forces holding atoms together will begin to weaken. The molecules that make up solid objects, the particles that form the very structure of matter, will be ripped apart, leaving behind a universe of isolated, drifting subatomic particles. And then, at the final moment, the instant of the Big Rip, space itself will cease to exist in any recognizable form. Every remaining particle will be torn away from every other, and the very concept of distance will lose all meaning. The universe will no longer be a coherent space. It will be nothing more than an infinite, featureless void where even the fundamental laws of physics no longer apply. But is this truly the end? Or is there something beyond the Big Rip? Some physicists believe that the universe's destruction could trigger the birth of a new one. If space is infinitely stretched, it could create the conditions for a new cosmic event, perhaps something like a reverse Big Bang. In this scenario, the energy that was once bound within the universe could be released in a way that seeds the creation of a new cosmos. If this is the case, then the Big Rip might not be an ultimate death, but rather a transition to another stage of existence. It's possible that the cycle of expansion and destruction has happened before and will happen again. Perhaps our universe is just one of many, each following its own path of creation, growth, and eventual collapse. But here's an even stranger possibility. What if something, some form of information, or even consciousness, could survive the transition? If the laws of physics are rewritten with each new universe, could there be a way for patterns of information to persist across cosmic cycles? Some scientists speculate that information might be a fundamental property of reality, just like space and time. If that's the case, then perhaps something, some trace of the past, could carry over into whatever comes next. This leads to one of the most unsettling questions of all. If the universe is heading toward a cataclysmic end, then is there anything we can do to stop it? Right now, the answer seems to be no. We have no control over the expansion of the universe. And if phantom energy is real, then the fate of the cosmos is already sealed. But that doesn't mean we should stop searching for answers. The more we learn about dark energy and the nature of space itself, the closer we come to understanding the true nature of reality. For now, all we can do is observe. Future telescopes and experiments may help us determine whether the expansion of the universe is truly accelerating toward a Big Rip, or if some unknown factor will change its course. Perhaps we will discover a new law of physics that allows us to manipulate space-time in ways we never imagined. Or perhaps we will find that we are simply passengers on a one-way journey toward oblivion. But one thing is certain, the mystery of phantom energy challenges everything we think we know about the universe. It forces us to confront the possibility that existence itself is impermanent, and that even the most fundamental structures of reality are subject to change. And if that's true, then the greatest mystery of all may not be how the universe began, but what will happen when it finally comes to an end. The idea of the Big Rip and phantom energy isn't just a theoretical curiosity. It's a direct challenge to everything we thought we understood about physics, space, and time. If true, it means the very framework of reality is far more fragile than we ever imagined. It suggests that the universe isn't just heading toward a slow, gradual heat death billions of years from now, but rather an abrupt, violent end that could tear apart even the most fundamental forces of nature. But how certain are we that this will actually happen? To answer that, we need to take a closer look at the evidence we have so far. The concept of phantom energy was born out of our observations of the universe's accelerating expansion, something we first discovered in the late 1990s. At the time, scientists were trying to measure how fast the expansion of the universe was slowing down due to gravity. But instead of slowing, they found something shocking. The universe was actually expanding faster over time. This discovery changed everything. It meant that some unknown force, what we now call dark energy, was pushing space apart at an increasing rate. And if this acceleration was happening, it meant that our current models of the universe were incomplete. For years, dark energy was assumed to be a constant force, something that simply counteracted gravity on a cosmic scale. But then physicists started to wonder, what if dark energy wasn't just staying the same over time? What if it was actually getting stronger? This is where phantom energy comes in. If dark energy has an equation of state where its energy density increases as the universe expands, then the result is a runaway effect, where space itself is torn apart. The key number that determines whether this happens is called the equation of state parameter, denoted by the Greek letter W. In simple terms, W tells us how dark energy behaves over time. If W is exactly -1, then dark energy is a simple cosmological constant, unchanging and stable. If W is greater than -1, then dark energy weakens over time, and the universe might eventually slow down its expansion. But if W is less than -1, then dark energy strengthens over time, and we are in phantom energy territory. The problem is, current observations suggest that W might be slightly below -1. Not by much, but just enough to raise serious concerns. If this value remains below -1, even by the tiniest amount, then the Big Rip is inevitable. And since our measurements of dark energy's properties are still improving, there is a real possibility that we could soon have a definitive answer, one way or another, about whether the universe will end in a cosmic apocalypse. But the implications of phantom energy go beyond just the destruction of the universe. It also forces us to rethink the fundamental laws of physics themselves. If energy is truly being created out of nowhere, then this violates one of the most sacred principles of physics, the conservation of energy. Some physicists believe that if phantom energy exists, then it might be pointing to a deeper, hidden law of nature, one that we have yet to discover. One idea is that phantom energy isn't actually being created, but rather being borrowed from another dimension. In this view, our universe could be interacting with some larger cosmic structure, one that exists beyond our 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. If energy is leaking into our universe from this higher dimensional space, then that could explain why the energy density of dark energy is increasing over time. This also raises the possibility that our universe is not an isolated system. It might be part of a much larger network of universes, all connected in ways we can't yet perceive. If this is true, then phantom energy might not be a sign of destruction, but rather a transformation, one that could lead to an entirely new understanding of reality itself. But even if we accept that the Big Rip is real, there's still one massive question left unanswered. What happens after the Big Rip? If space itself is torn apart, does that mean the universe simply ceases to exist? Or could something emerge from the chaos? Some physicists believe that the end of our universe could trigger the birth of a new one. In certain models of physics, space and time are not absolute, but rather fluid-like properties that can change under extreme conditions. If the Big Rip destroys space as we know it, then it's possible that what follows is a kind of cosmic reset, one where a new universe forms out of the wreckage of the old. There's also the possibility that some fundamental aspect of our universe could survive the transition. If information is truly a fundamental property of reality, as some physicists suggest, then it's possible that some form of data, some trace of our existence, could be carried over into whatever comes next. This raises a deeply philosophical question. If our universe is just one iteration in an endless cycle of destruction and rebirth, then is anything ever truly lost? And then there's the ultimate question. If the Big Rip is coming, can we do anything to stop it? Right now, it seems impossible. We have no way of controlling dark energy, and if phantom energy is real, then the fate of the cosmos has already been decided. But that doesn't mean we should stop looking for answers. The more we learn about dark energy and the fabric of space itself, the closer we come to unlocking the true nature of the universe. For now, all we can do is wait and observe. Future telescopes, like the upcoming Euclid and Roman space telescopes, will give us a much clearer picture of dark energy's properties. Perhaps they will confirm our worst fears, or perhaps they will reveal something even stranger, something we haven't even considered yet. But one thing is certain: the mystery of phantom energy is one of the most profound puzzles in modern physics. It challenges our understanding of reality, forces us to confront the impermanence of existence, and raises questions that stretch beyond science into the realm of philosophy. And as we continue to explore the cosmos, one fact remains: the universe is far stranger, far more mysterious, and far more unpredictable than we ever imagined. If phantom energy is real, then we are not just passive observers in a slowly dying universe. We are living in an unstable reality that is actively accelerating toward its own destruction. This isn't just a distant problem billions of years away. The very fabric of space-time itself could be unraveling beneath our feet, right now, in ways we don't yet have the ability to detect. But what makes this even more disturbing is that, unlike many other cosmic threats, this one isn't caused by external forces like asteroid impacts or supernovae. It is coming from within the fundamental nature of reality itself. To truly grasp the implications of the Big Rip, we need to consider what happens on smaller and smaller scales as the process accelerates. The timeline of events leading to the Big Rip is terrifying in its precision. If the phantom energy equation of state stays below -1, then as time progresses, galaxies will start to drift apart from one another at an increasing rate. The gravitational bonds that hold them together will weaken until, eventually, the galaxies themselves disintegrate. Stars will be ripped away from their galaxies, thrown into the ever-expanding void of space with no way to return. But this is only the beginning. As the expansion continues to accelerate, the bonds that hold individual star systems together will also start to break. Planets will be separated from their stars, wandering alone in an increasingly empty universe. Even at this stage, life as we know it would be impossible. The night sky would become completely dark, with no galaxies or stars visible, just an endless, expanding emptiness. And yet, the destruction does not stop there. As the energy density continues to increase, even smaller structures start to come apart. At a certain point, the expansion will become so powerful that it will overwhelm the electromagnetic forces that hold atoms together. Molecules will break apart, atoms themselves will be torn to pieces, and even the fundamental particles that make up reality will be separated from each other. At the final moment, what physicists call the rip time, even the very fabric of space-time itself will be shredded. Every point in space will become infinitely distant from every other point, and the universe will cease to exist in any meaningful way. Time itself may come to an end. Reality, as we understand it, will be gone. But here's where things get even stranger. If space-time is ripped apart at the quantum level, then what does that actually mean for the laws of physics? We tend to think of space as an empty background, a stage where events unfold. But if the Big Rip happens, it suggests that space itself is something that can be destroyed. This means that space isn't just an abstract concept, it's a physical entity with properties we don't yet fully understand. This also raises a haunting possibility. If space can be destroyed, can it also be created? Some theories suggest that if the Big Rip occurs, the destruction of our universe could give rise to a new one. The extreme conditions at the moment of the rip might trigger a kind of bounce, where space-time reforms in a new configuration. If this is true, then our universe could be part of an endless cycle of destruction and rebirth, each iteration creating new physical laws, new constants, and new possibilities for existence. However, there's an even more mind-bending possibility to consider. What if our universe has already gone through multiple rips in the past? If phantom energy has always existed, then the universe might have undergone previous cycles of expansion and tearing, only to be reassembled again in a new form. This could mean that the cosmos is not a single, continuous entity, but rather a sequence of disconnected realities, each one born from the remains of the last. But there's one final mystery that remains unresolved. If phantom energy is causing the universe to accelerate toward destruction, then where is this energy coming from? If energy is truly being created out of nothing, then it violates one of the most fundamental principles of physics, the conservation of energy. But some physicists believe there may be a deeper explanation, one that connects phantom energy to the very structure of spacetime itself. One idea is that dark energy, and by extension phantom energy, isn't actually a form of energy at all, but rather a property of space itself. This suggests that what we perceive as energy could be an illusion, an emergent effect caused by the way space expands. If true, then phantom energy may not actually be something that is growing in strength, but rather a sign that our understanding of space and time is incomplete. Another possibility is that phantom energy is leaking into our universe from another dimension. If extra dimensions exist, as some theories suggest, then energy might be transferring from one realm to another in ways we can't yet perceive. This would mean that our universe isn't a closed system but rather part of a much larger, interconnected structure, one where energy flows between different levels of reality. And then there's the most radical idea of all. What if phantom energy isn't a natural phenomenon, but rather the result of some unknown force acting upon our universe? Some physicists have speculated that if the universe is a simulation, then phantom energy might be a sign that the simulation itself is breaking down. If the equations that govern reality are being altered, then the increasing expansion of space could be a side effect, an error in the underlying code of existence. If any of these theories are correct, then phantom energy isn't just a threat, it's a clue. It may be the key to unlocking the deepest mysteries of the cosmos, revealing the true nature of space, time, and reality itself. For now, the only thing we can do is continue to observe, measure, and question everything we think we know. The fate of the universe may already be sealed, but the journey to understanding it has only just begun. If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then everything we know about the universe is far more fragile than we ever imagined. It suggests that the cosmos is not an eternal, stable entity, but rather a system in a state of existential crisis, one that is slowly unraveling at an ever-increasing rate. The more we try to understand phantom energy, the more we realize that it doesn't just threaten the structure of the universe, it challenges the very foundations of physics itself. One of the biggest unanswered questions is whether phantom energy is truly a fundamental force of nature or if it is an emergent effect, something that arises from the underlying properties of spacetime in ways we don't yet understand. If phantom energy is an actual, measurable form of energy, then it has to come from somewhere. But if it's not a real energy source, then we have to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the expansion of the universe. For decades, physicists have tried to understand the true nature of dark energy, the mysterious force driving the accelerated expansion of the universe. But phantom energy takes this puzzle to a new level. Unlike ordinary dark energy, which simply makes the universe expand faster, phantom energy predicts a scenario where the expansion accelerates without limit, eventually tearing apart the very fabric of reality. This leads to a disturbing question. If the universe is accelerating toward destruction, is there any way to stop it? Some theories suggest that if we could somehow modify the fundamental laws of physics, we might be able to counteract the effects of phantom energy. But this is purely theoretical, as we don't even understand how phantom energy works in the first place. If it turns out to be a property of space itself, then stopping it would be equivalent to changing the very structure of reality, a task far beyond our current understanding. Another possibility is that the Big Rip might not be inevitable. Some models suggest that the equation of state of dark energy could fluctuate over time, meaning that phantom energy might not remain in its dangerous form forever. If the energy density changes in just the right way, it could stabilize, preventing the universe from being torn apart. But this is purely speculative, as we have no evidence to suggest that dark energy behaves this way. There is also the possibility that our understanding of gravity itself is incomplete. If general relativity breaks down at cosmic scales, then our calculations about the expansion of the universe might be wrong. Some alternative theories of gravity suggest that what we perceive as phantom energy could actually be a result of modifications to the laws of gravity at large distances. If this is the case, then the Big Rip might be an illusion, an effect of using an incomplete model to describe the universe. But let's consider an even more unsettling idea. What if phantom energy is not a natural phenomenon at all? What if it is evidence of an external force acting upon our universe, something beyond our comprehension? Some physicists have speculated that if our universe exists within a larger multiverse, then what we perceive as phantom energy could be the result of interactions with other universes. If energy is leaking into our cosmos from another dimension, then the accelerated expansion might be a side effect of forces beyond our reality. This would mean that our universe is not an isolated system, but rather part of a much larger structure, one where energy flows between different realms of existence. If this is true, then the Big Rip might not be the end of everything. Instead, it could be a transformation, an event where our universe dissolves into something entirely new. But the most mind-bending possibility of all is that phantom energy is a sign that our universe is not what we think it is. Some scientists have proposed that if reality is a simulation, then phantom energy might be evidence that the simulation itself is breaking down. If the underlying equations that govern our universe are being altered, then the increasing expansion of space could be a side effect, an error in the fundamental code of existence. If this is the case, then the Big Rip would not be a physical event, but rather a failure of the simulation itself. The universe would not be torn apart in a traditional sense. It would simply cease to exist as the underlying computational framework collapses. This raises a terrifying question. If our universe is a simulation, then who, or what, created it? And if it is breaking down, does that mean there is an intelligence behind it? Could phantom energy be a deliberate mechanism, a kind of reset switch, built into the fabric of reality? At this point, we are deep in the realm of speculation, but the fact remains that phantom energy is one of the greatest mysteries in modern cosmology. If it is real, then it means the universe has an expiration date, a point in time where everything will come to an end. If it is not real, then it means our understanding of the cosmos is fundamentally flawed. Either way, we are left with more questions than answers. Is the universe doomed to be torn apart by phantom energy? Or is there something even deeper at play? Something that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about reality? For now, all we can do is observe, measure, and question everything. The fate of the universe may already be sealed, but the search for answers has only just begun. If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then the universe is not just expanding, it is accelerating toward an inevitable and catastrophic conclusion. The implications of this go beyond just astronomy. This hypothesis could mean that our entire understanding of physics, space-time, and even the fundamental forces of nature is incomplete. It suggests that everything we perceive, galaxies, stars, planets, and even the very particles that make up our bodies, will eventually be torn apart by a force we do not yet fully understand. This concept is deeply unsettling because it implies a fate unlike any other cosmic ending we have ever theorized. The Big Crunch, where the universe collapses back in on itself, at least offers the possibility of a cyclical rebirth. The heat-death scenario, in which all energy is evenly distributed and no new processes can occur, suggests a slow and quiet demise. But the Big Rip? It is an end that is both violent and absolute, one where the very fabric of space itself disintegrates. To understand just how drastic this is, we need to examine the physics behind it. When physicists describe dark energy, they often refer to an equation called the equation of state, which determines how the energy density of the universe changes over time. In simple terms, if the equation of state parameter, denoted as, is exactly -1, then dark energy behaves like the cosmological constant, proposed by Einstein, leading to a steady acceleration. If is greater than -1, then the expansion slows down over time. But if is less than -1, we enter the phantom energy realm, where the acceleration becomes uncontrollable. This is where things get dangerous. Unlike ordinary dark energy, which only causes galaxies to drift apart, phantom energy increases in intensity as the universe expands. This creates a feedback loop. The more space expands, the stronger the repulsive force of phantom energy becomes. Unlike any other known force in nature, it does not diminish over time. It grows until it overwhelms all other forces. At first, this effect is subtle. Galaxies continue to move apart, just as they do in a universe dominated by regular dark energy. But as time goes on, the acceleration becomes more extreme. At some point, phantom energy overcomes the gravitational pull holding galaxies together, and they begin to disintegrate. Then, individual star systems are torn apart. The planets that orbit their stars will be flung into the void, their orbits destabilized by the relentless force pulling them outward. But it doesn't stop there. As the expansion continues to intensify, even the atomic structure of matter comes under threat. The very forces that hold atoms together, the strong nuclear force and the electromagnetic force, will no longer be strong enough to resist the accelerating expansion of space. Molecules will break apart. Atoms will be torn into their constituent protons, neutrons, and electrons. And eventually, even these fundamental particles themselves may cease to exist as the fabric of space-time is stretched beyond its limits. This leads to an inevitable conclusion. If phantom energy is real, then there will come a moment when the entire universe ceases to exist in its current form. There will be no matter, no radiation, no structure, only an empty, infinitely expanding void. Unlike other theories of cosmic endings, which leave behind remnants or possibilities for future creation, the Big Rip is final. It is not just the end of the universe. It is the end of everything. The timeline for this catastrophic event is uncertain. Some models suggest it could occur tens of billions of years in the future. Others, depending on the exact value of the equation of state parameter, suggest it could happen much sooner. If is significantly less than -1, the end could come in just a few billion years, meaning that even galaxies like the Milky Way would not survive for much longer. This raises profound philosophical and scientific questions. If the universe is truly doomed to be torn apart, then what does that mean for the nature of reality? Is this a process that has happened before, in previous iterations of the cosmos? Could there be some unknown mechanism that prevents the Big Rip from occurring, one that we have yet to discover? Some physicists speculate that new physics could emerge as we approach this extreme state. Perhaps quantum gravity, the as yet undiscovered theory that unifies Einstein's relativity with quantum mechanics, contains hidden factors that prevent the total destruction of space-time. Or perhaps the nature of phantom energy itself is misunderstood. Maybe what we see as an unstoppable force is actually part of a larger, more complex cycle of cosmic evolution. One possibility is that the universe might transition into an entirely new phase of existence. If space itself is torn apart, it is possible that new physical laws could emerge in its wake, leading to the birth of a completely different kind of cosmos, one with different fundamental forces, different particles, and different structures. In this scenario, the Big Rip would not be an ending, but a transformation, a kind of cosmic metamorphosis beyond our ability to comprehend. Another speculative idea is that intelligent life, if it survives long enough, might find a way to escape the destruction of the universe. If civilizations are advanced enough, they might develop the technology to manipulate space-time itself, creating artificial, pocket universes, or finding a way to jump into parallel realities. While this sounds like science fiction, some theoretical physicists have seriously considered the possibility that advanced life could find a way to survive cosmic destruction. But for now, we are left with uncertainty. The phantom energy hypothesis remains one of the greatest mysteries in modern cosmology. It is a hypothesis that forces us to confront the limits of our understanding, the fragility of existence, and the possibility that the universe itself is far more unpredictable than we ever imagined. The search for answers continues. Scientists are working tirelessly to measure dark energy more precisely, to determine whether its properties truly indicate a runaway expansion. Future telescopes and experiments may provide the clues we need to solve this puzzle once and for all. Until then, we can only watch, measure, and theorize, hoping that, somewhere in the vastness of the cosmos, the ultimate fate of the universe is not as terrifying as the phantom energy hypothesis suggests. If the phantom energy hypothesis is true, then our universe is not just doomed, it is accelerating toward its own violent destruction at an ever-increasing rate. The more space expands, the more energy this mysterious force gains, creating a runaway effect that cannot be stopped by any known physical law. This is what makes phantom energy so terrifying. Unlike the slow heat death of the universe or the possibility of a rebirth after a big crunch, the Big Rip scenario suggests a final and inescapable end. But how close are we to proving whether this will happen? Right now, we are on the brink of major breakthroughs in cosmology that could either confirm or disprove the existence of phantom energy. Scientists are using increasingly powerful telescopes, such as the James Webb Space Telescope and upcoming observatories, to measure the expansion rate of the universe with greater precision than ever before. If we detect that the equation of state parameter is significantly less than -1, it would be strong evidence that we are living in a universe destined for a catastrophic end. To understand just how catastrophic, let's examine what would happen to the universe as the Big Rip approaches. If phantom energy continues to grow in strength, the first things to be torn apart would be the largest structures in the universe, galactic superclusters. These immense formations, which span hundreds of millions of light years, are currently held together by gravity. But as phantom energy intensifies, the bonds keeping these structures together will be stretched until they snap, sending individual galaxies drifting away from each other at incredible speeds. Next, galaxies themselves will begin to disintegrate. The Milky Way, for example, is currently bound together by the gravity of its billions of stars and a central supermassive black hole. But in a phantom energy-dominated universe, even this powerful force will not be enough to hold it together. Stars will be pulled away from their orbits, flung into the ever-expanding void, their connections to one another broken forever. As this process continues, individual star systems will be destroyed. Our Sun, along with every other star in the universe, will lose its grip on its planets. The Earth, if it still exists at this point, will be sent hurtling into the darkness, no longer bound by the gravitational pull of its star. Eventually, even planetary bodies themselves will begin to disintegrate as the forces holding them together are overcome by the relentless expansion of space. But the destruction doesn't stop there. As the expansion accelerates further, even smaller-scale structures will come under threat. Moons will be torn apart, asteroids will disintegrate, and even the smallest grains of cosmic dust will be shredded by the growing force of phantom energy. The once stable fabric of the universe will unravel piece by piece. And then comes the truly horrifying part, the moment when phantom energy begins to attack the very building blocks of matter itself. Atoms, which have remained stable for billions of years, will find themselves unable to resist the relentless expansion of space. The electromagnetic force, which binds electrons to atomic nuclei, will be overwhelmed. Electrons will be stripped away from atoms, leaving behind scattered protons and neutrons. But even these fundamental particles are not safe. As space continues to stretch, the strong nuclear force, the fundamental interaction that holds protons and neutrons together within atomic nuclei, will break down. At this point, even the very concept of matter ceases to exist. The protons and neutrons that make up all of reality will decay into their constituent quarks, and then even those may be torn apart, leaving behind only radiation and an expanding void. In the final moments of the universe, even light itself may cease to exist in its recognizable form. The very concept of space and time could break down in ways that our physics cannot currently describe. If phantom energy is strong enough, the expansion could become so extreme that the very fabric of space-time itself is torn apart, leaving behind nothing, No matter, no energy, no dimensions, no laws of physics. Just an empty, infinite void with no structure or meaning. This is the ultimate fate of a universe dominated by phantom energy. A destruction so absolute that it erases not only everything that has ever existed, but the very rules that allowed existence to happen in the first place. Unlike other cosmic endings that leave behind remnants, black holes, cooled white dwarfs, or fading radiation, this scenario suggests a true end to everything. So, what can we do? Can we escape this fate? Some physicists speculate that if humanity, or any sufficiently advanced civilization, survives long enough, there might be a way to avoid being destroyed by the Big Rip. One of the most radical ideas is that advanced civilizations could create artificial, bubble universes, pockets of reality where the effects of phantom energy do not apply. If such a feat were possible, it would require a mastery of physics far beyond anything we currently understand. Another possibility is that the phantom energy hypothesis is wrong, and that the acceleration of the universe's expansion is not as extreme as we currently think. Some alternative models suggest that dark energy could be dynamic, meaning it changes over time instead of remaining constant. If this is the case, it is possible that dark energy could weaken in the future, slowing the expansion of the universe before it reaches a catastrophic stage. To find out which of these scenarios is correct, we need more data. The next few decades of astronomical observations will be crucial in determining the true nature of dark energy, and whether we are on a path toward a Big Rip. The more we learn, the more we can refine our models and predictions. But for now, the mystery remains unsolved. The phantom energy hypothesis forces us to confront some of the deepest and most unsettling questions about reality. What happens if everything we know is doomed to be erased? Is there a hidden mechanism that could save the universe from destruction? Or is the Big Rip an unavoidable end to existence itself? Only time, and further exploration, will tell. If the phantom energy hypothesis holds true, then our fate is sealed by forces beyond our control. But what if we're wrong? What if the expansion of the universe is not accelerating indefinitely but instead follows a more complex pattern? This is where alternative theories come into play, each offering a different perspective on the ultimate fate of the cosmos. One of the biggest challenges in proving the phantom energy hypothesis is our limited ability to measure dark energy. Right now, we infer its existence based on how galaxies move away from each other. But what if our measurements are flawed? What if something else, something we don't yet understand, is influencing the expansion of the universe? Some physicists propose that what we perceive as dark energy could be the result of hidden dimensions, modifications to general relativity, or even interactions with unknown particles. Another possibility is that dark energy is not a constant force but something that evolves over time. In some models, dark energy could weaken in the distant future, slowing the expansion of the universe before it reaches a catastrophic stage. If this were the case, the Big Rip would never occur. Instead, the universe might stabilize into a state of slow expansion or even reverse course, leading to a big crunch. This would mean that instead of being torn apart, the universe would collapse back in on itself, potentially leading to another Big Bang. But what if phantom energy is real and unstoppable? Can anything survive the Big Rip? The answer might depend on how fundamental particles behave under extreme conditions. While atoms and molecules would be torn apart, some physicists speculate that certain exotic particles, such as those predicted by string theory, might be able to withstand even the most extreme expansion. If true, these particles could carry information from our universe into whatever comes next, preserving a trace of our existence. Some radical theories even suggest that new universes could emerge from the destruction of the old one. If the laws of physics break down completely at the end of the Big Rip, it's possible that new physical laws could take their place, forming the foundation for a brand new cosmos. This idea aligns with some interpretations of the multiverse theory, where each universe undergoes its own cycle of creation and destruction. The biggest question remains: how long do we have? Based on current estimates, if phantom energy exists, the Big Rip would occur in about 22 billion years. While this might seem like an unimaginably long time, in cosmic terms, it's actually quite soon. For comparison, The universe is only about 13.8 billion years old, meaning the time left before the Big Rip is shorter than the time that has already passed since the Big Bang. But even if the Big Rip is billions of years away, the search for answers is urgent. Understanding the true nature of dark energy could reshape our understanding of physics and even influence how we explore space. If we discover that phantom energy is real, it could force us to rethink the fundamental laws governing reality. Right now, some of the most advanced scientific instruments ever built are searching for clues. Observatories like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory and the Euclid Space Telescope are designed to study the expansion of the universe with unprecedented accuracy. If they find evidence that dark energy is growing stronger over time, it would be a major step toward confirming the phantom energy hypothesis. At the same time, physicists are working on new theoretical models that could help us make sense of dark energy. Some of these models explore the possibility that dark energy could interact with other cosmic forces, leading to unexpected effects. Others suggest that dark energy might emerge from quantum mechanics in ways we don't yet understand. Ultimately, the fate of the universe is still an open question. The phantom energy hypothesis presents a terrifying possibility, but it is just one of many competing ideas about how the cosmos will end. Whether the universe will be ripped apart, collapse in on itself, or transition into something entirely new remains one of the greatest mysteries in science. As we continue to explore the cosmos, we may eventually uncover the truth. But for now, the question remains, are we racing toward an inescapable destruction, or is there something we've missed, something that could change everything we think we know about the future of the universe? If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then we are on a one-way path to destruction, with no escape, no reversal, and no way to slow down. But what if there's more to the story? What if our current understanding of dark energy is incomplete, or even entirely wrong? Could the universe have hidden mechanisms that prevent the Big Rip? And if the universe does end in this catastrophic fashion, is there any possibility that something, anything, could survive? One of the biggest challenges in proving the phantom energy hypothesis is the difficulty of measuring dark energy directly. We don't have a way to collect a sample of dark energy in a laboratory or interact with it in any meaningful way. The only evidence we have comes from its effects on the large-scale structure of the universe, specifically, the way galaxies move apart over time. But what if our observations are missing something? What if dark energy is not a simple, uniform force, but something much stranger? Some physicists have proposed that dark energy might not be a property of empty space itself, but instead a result of interactions between unseen particles. According to this idea, there could be a hidden, dark sector of the universe, filled with unknown particles that influence the expansion of space in ways we don't yet understand. If this is true, it's possible that dark energy could change over time, weakening or even reversing its effects before the Big Rip ever happens. There's also the question of whether dark energy is truly constant. In the standard model of cosmology, dark energy is often assumed to have a constant energy density, meaning its effects remain the same across all of time and space. But some alternative models suggest that dark energy could evolve, becoming stronger or weaker as the universe ages. If dark energy were to weaken over time, it could prevent the Big Rip from occurring. On the other hand, if it strengthens, if phantom energy is real, then the universe is doomed to destruction at an ever-increasing rate. But let's assume for a moment that phantom energy is real and unstoppable. What does that mean for the fundamental laws of physics? One of the most mind-bending aspects of the Big Rip is that it doesn't just destroy galaxies, stars, and planets. It also tears apart the very fabric of reality itself. In the final moments before the Big Rip, even fundamental particles like protons and neutrons would be pulled apart, leaving nothing behind but radiation and an empty void. This raises an even bigger question: could anything survive the Big Rip? At first glance, the answer seems to be no. If space itself is being stretched infinitely, then all known forms of matter and energy should be annihilated in the process. But some physicists speculate that certain exotic particles, such as those predicted by string theory, might be able to persist even in an environment where space and time are being torn apart. Another possibility is that the destruction of one universe could lead to the creation of another. If the Big Rip represents the ultimate breakdown of space and time, then it's possible that new physical laws could emerge in its aftermath, forming the foundation for a brand new cosmos. Some theories even suggest that the end of our universe could create a kind of cosmic seed that gives rise to a new Big Bang. If this is true, then the universe might not truly be ending, it might simply be transitioning into something else. But even if a new universe does emerge from the destruction of the old one, would anything from our current universe survive? Could there be a way for information, particles, or even consciousness itself to persist through the transition? These questions remain purely speculative, but they challenge us to think about the nature of reality in entirely new ways. The search for answers continues. Astronomers are using increasingly powerful telescopes to study the expansion of the universe with greater precision than ever before. If they detect that the rate of expansion is increasing at an accelerating pace, it would provide strong evidence for the phantom energy hypothesis. But if they find signs that dark energy is changing in unexpected ways, it could mean that the future of the universe is not as certain as we once thought. The fate of the universe remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in all of science. The phantom energy hypothesis presents a terrifying vision of the future, but it is just one possibility among many. Whether the universe will be torn apart, collapse in on itself, or transition into something entirely new is still an open question. One thing is certain: as we continue to explore the cosmos, we are constantly confronted with the limits of our knowledge. And perhaps, in the search for answers, we will not only discover the fate of the universe, we will also uncover deeper truths about the nature of reality itself. The phantom energy hypothesis presents one of the most unsettling possibilities in cosmology: a universe doomed to destruction, where the very fabric of space-time tears apart at an ever-accelerating rate. But before we accept this grim fate, we need to ask a crucial question: how certain are we that this scenario will actually happen? What if our current understanding of dark energy is incomplete, or worse, completely wrong? Could there be hidden variables or cosmic forces at play that might change the outcome? To understand the full picture, let's take a step back and re-examine what we actually know about dark energy. Right now, our best evidence for its existence comes from observations of distant galaxies. By measuring how their light shifts over time, a phenomenon known as redshift, astronomers can determine how fast the universe is expanding. When these measurements were first taken in the late 1990s, scientists expected to find that the expansion was slowing down due to gravity. Instead, they discovered the exact opposite. The universe was expanding faster and faster, as if some invisible force were pushing galaxies apart. This was a shocking discovery. It completely overturned our understanding of how the cosmos works and led to the conclusion that some unknown form of energy, dubbed dark energy, must be responsible for this accelerated expansion. But here's the problem: despite decades of research, we still don't know what dark energy actually is. It doesn't behave like ordinary matter. It doesn't emit light or interact with forces in any measurable way. The only thing we know for certain is that it makes up about 68% of the total energy in the universe, and seems to be accelerating the expansion of space. If dark energy is a constant force, then the universe will continue expanding indefinitely, eventually reaching a state where galaxies are so far apart that they become invisible to one another. But if dark energy is something more extreme, if it behaves like phantom energy, then the expansion won't just continue, it will accelerate at an ever-increasing rate, ultimately leading to the Big Rip. In this scenario, the force of expansion becomes so overwhelming that it tears apart galaxies, then solar systems, then individual planets, and finally even atoms themselves. But how do we know if this will actually happen? The truth is, we don't. The phantom energy hypothesis is just one possible interpretation of the data. Some physicists believe that dark energy is a fundamental property of space itself, an idea originally proposed by Albert Einstein in the form of the cosmological constant. If this is the case, then dark energy will remain constant over time, and the universe will continue expanding at a steady rate. But if dark energy is dynamic, if it evolves and changes over time, then the future of the universe could be much more complex than we currently imagine. One alternative theory is that dark energy might eventually weaken, allowing gravity to regain control. In this scenario, the universe could slow down its expansion and eventually collapse in on itself in a cataclysmic event known as the Big Crunch. This would be the opposite of the Big Rip. Instead of everything being torn apart, everything would be compressed into a single, infinitely dense point, potentially leading to another Big Bang and the birth of a new universe. Another possibility is that dark energy is not a simple, uniform force but instead the result of interactions between hidden particles or extra dimensions of space-time. Some models suggest that dark energy might be linked to quantum mechanics, arising from fluctuations in empty space that create a repulsive force. If this is true, then dark energy might not behave in a predictable way. It could fluctuate, reverse, or even disappear entirely under certain conditions. There's also the intriguing idea that what we perceive as dark energy might not be an energy force at all, but instead a sign that our understanding of gravity is incomplete. Some alternative theories of gravity suggest that the acceleration of the universe is not due to an unseen force but rather a consequence of how space-time behaves on extremely large scales. If these theories turn out to be correct, then our entire framework for understanding cosmic expansion would need to be revised. But what if the phantom energy hypothesis is real? If the universe is truly headed for a big rip, is there any possibility that something, anything, could survive? At first glance, it seems impossible. If space itself is being torn apart, then all known forms of matter should be annihilated in the process. Even black holes, which are usually considered the most indestructible objects in the universe, would be pulled apart as space-time is stretched to infinity. However, some theoretical physicists have speculated that certain exotic particles, such as those predicted by string theory, might be able to survive in some form. If these particles exist, they could carry information from our universe into whatever comes next. Another possibility is that the destruction of one universe could trigger the birth of another. Some versions of the multiverse theory suggest that universes undergo cycles of creation and destruction, meaning that even if our cosmos is torn apart, something new might emerge from the wreckage. The biggest challenge in proving or disproving the phantom energy hypothesis is that we are limited by what we can observe. Right now, our measurements of dark energy are based on studying galaxies that are billions of light years away. Because light takes time to travel across the universe, when we look at these distant galaxies, we are actually seeing them as they were in the past, not as they are today. This means that our understanding of dark energy is based on incomplete data. We don't yet know how it behaves in the present, let alone how it will evolve in the future. To get more accurate measurements, scientists are building new telescopes and space observatories designed to study dark energy in unprecedented detail. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory, for example, will create a massive three-dimensional map of the universe, allowing astronomers to track how the expansion of space has changed over billions of years. The Euclid Space Telescope, launched by the European Space Agency, will study the distribution of dark matter and dark energy across cosmic structures, potentially revealing new clues about their nature. There's also the exciting possibility that laboratory experiments here on Earth could provide insights into dark energy. Some researchers are exploring ways to test whether dark energy interacts with other forces, such as electromagnetism or the strong nuclear force. If any measurable interaction is found, it could revolutionize our understanding of dark energy and provide new clues about its role in the universe. Despite all these efforts, the ultimate fate of the universe remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in science. The phantom energy hypothesis presents a terrifying vision of the future, but it is not the only possibility. Whether the universe will be ripped apart, collapse in on itself, or transition into something entirely new is still an open question. What is certain is that as our understanding of dark energy improves, we may uncover answers that are even more mind-bending than we ever imagined. And perhaps, in searching for the fate of the cosmos, we will also unlock deeper truths about the very nature of reality itself. The phantom energy hypothesis is one of the most mind-bending possibilities in modern cosmology. But the deeper we dive into this idea, the more complex and unsettling it becomes. If phantom energy is real, And if it continues to behave the way current models predict, then our universe is not just expanding, it is racing toward a violent, chaotic, and inescapable end. But could we be misinterpreting the data? Could there be unseen factors influencing the way we perceive cosmic acceleration? And if the Big Rip is truly inevitable, is there any way to stop it, or escape it? To answer these questions, we need to revisit the foundations of physics itself. The phantom energy hypothesis is rooted in the idea that dark energy exerts negative pressure, meaning that instead of pulling matter together like gravity, it pushes space apart. But why does this happen? Why would the universe contain a force that seemingly works against the very fabric of reality? One possible explanation lies in quantum field theory, the branch of physics that describes how subatomic particles interact with energy fields. In quantum mechanics, empty space is never truly empty. Even in the most absolute vacuum, tiny fluctuations of energy constantly pop in and out of existence, creating what physicists call vacuum energy. These fluctuations are normally balanced out, canceling each other so that their effects are negligible. But what if, for some reason, this vacuum energy became unstable? What if space itself started generating more and more energy, feeding into the expansion of the universe like a runaway chain reaction? This is one of the leading explanations for phantom energy, an unstable vacuum state that causes spacetime to stretch at an accelerating rate. But if this is true, it suggests a terrifying possibility that the fundamental laws of physics may not be as stable as we assume. In other words, if phantom energy exists, it could indicate that the vacuum state of our universe is not the lowest possible energy state. There could be an even lower energy state that spacetime is trying to reach, and in doing so, it could trigger catastrophic consequences. This concept is sometimes called vacuum decay, and it is one of the most extreme doomsday scenarios ever proposed. If the vacuum state of the universe were to suddenly shift, a bubble of true vacuum, where the laws of physics are different, could form somewhere in the cosmos. This bubble would expand at the speed of light, annihilating everything in its path and fundamentally rewriting reality itself. If phantom energy is linked to vacuum instability, then the acceleration of the universe could be pushing us towards such an event, making the Big Rip not just an expansion problem but a full-scale collapse of physics as we know it. But let's set aside vacuum decay for a moment, and return to the Big Rip itself. If the expansion of the universe is truly accelerating without limit, then at some point, even fundamental forces like electromagnetism and the strong nuclear force will no longer be able to hold atoms together. What happens then? Does matter simply dissolve into nothingness? Not necessarily. Some physicists believe that as space expands, it could create new and exotic forms of matter, particles that have never existed before and that might behave in ways we can't even imagine. One possibility is that in the final moments before the Big Rip, new quantum fields could emerge, generating strange and unknown forms of energy. Some models suggest that the extreme conditions of a rapidly expanding universe could create tachyonic particles, hypothetical entities that always move faster than the speed of light. If these particles exist, they could open entirely new dimensions of physics, potentially allowing for phenomena that defy the normal rules of time and space. But perhaps the most intriguing question is this: if the Big Rip is coming, is there any way to survive it? Can anything escape the destruction of the universe? This might sound impossible, but some speculative theories suggest that an advanced civilization could, in theory, find a way to escape into another universe before the destruction is complete. One idea is that if the expansion of space becomes extreme enough, it could create conditions similar to those found in black holes, except instead of collapsing inward, space would stretch outward. If this happens, then at the very edge of destruction, there might be a way to tunnel through space-time into a new universe. Some physicists have even suggested that artificial wormholes or other space-bending structures could be used to navigate through this transition, allowing life to continue even after the death of our universe. Of course, all of this is highly speculative. Right now, we don't even know for sure if phantom energy is real. It is just one possible interpretation of the data, and there are still many unanswered questions. Could dark energy change over time? Could it eventually weaken, slow down, or even reverse? Some theories suggest that dark energy might be cyclical, meaning that instead of leading to a big rip, it could eventually oscillate, causing the universe to expand and contract in cycles. If this is true, then the universe might not be doomed at all. It might simply be going through phases of acceleration and deceleration, like a cosmic heartbeat. Another possibility is that dark energy is not actually a force at all, but rather a sign that our understanding of gravity is incomplete. Some alternative theories of gravity propose that space-time behaves differently on large scales than we currently assume. If this is the case, then the apparent acceleration of the universe might be an illusion, caused by effects we don't yet understand. If this turns out to be true, then the Big Rip might never happen, because the force driving it doesn't actually exist the way we think it does. But for now, we can't say for certain what the future holds. The phantom energy hypothesis remains one of the most intriguing, yet unsettling, possibilities in modern physics. If it is correct, then the universe is on a one-way path to destruction, and there is nothing we can do to stop it. But if it is wrong, then we still have much to learn about the true nature of dark energy, the expansion of space, and the ultimate fate of the cosmos. One thing is certain: as we continue to explore the mysteries of the universe, we are bound to uncover answers that are far stranger than we ever imagined. And perhaps, in doing so, we will not only discover the fate of the cosmos but also gain a deeper understanding of our own place within it. The deeper we explore the phantom energy hypothesis, the more unsettling its implications become. If phantom energy truly exists and is driving the universe toward an ever-accelerating expansion, then every single structure in existence, from galaxies to atoms, faces an inevitable and catastrophic fate. But could this expansion be stopped, reversed, or even manipulated in some way? Could there be hidden mechanisms within the fabric of space itself that counteract this runaway force? Or are we simply on a path that leads to the ultimate unraveling of reality? To understand this better, we need to analyze what actually happens as phantom energy increases. Unlike regular dark energy, which simply causes acceleration, phantom energy behaves in a way that continuously amplifies its effects. This means that over time, the force pushing galaxies apart doesn't just stay constant, it grows stronger. It's like a cosmic chain reaction, where each stage of expansion feeds into the next, causing an even greater acceleration. At first, the effects of this would be barely noticeable. The distances between galaxies would continue to expand at an increasing rate, but from our perspective, everything might seem relatively normal for billions of years. However, as the phantom energy density increases, the expansion would start to affect individual galaxy clusters, tearing them apart. The Milky Way, which is currently held together by gravity, would eventually lose its battle against this force, with its stars drifting away into the void. Then comes the truly terrifying part. As phantom energy continues to intensify, it would reach the level where it starts affecting individual star systems. Planets would be pulled from their orbits, solar systems would be torn apart, and stars themselves would no longer be able to maintain their structure. The nuclear fusion reactions that power stars depend on a delicate balance between gravity and outward pressure. But if phantom energy becomes strong enough, it would disrupt this balance, causing stars to swell, lose cohesion, and eventually disintegrate. But it gets worse. As we approach the final moments before the Big Rip, even atomic bonds would no longer hold. Molecules would be ripped apart, atoms themselves would be shredded into subatomic particles, and ultimately, even fundamental particles like quarks and electrons would be torn from each other. This would represent the absolute breakdown of all known physical structures, leaving behind only a chaotic, ever-expanding vacuum filled with stray energy. But here's where things take an even stranger turn. If everything is ripped apart completely, does that mean the universe truly ceases to exist? Or could there be something beyond the Big Rip? Some speculative theories suggest that the extreme conditions of a universe approaching its final moments might give rise to something entirely new. If phantom energy reaches an infinite density, the very structure of space-time could become unstable, leading to the creation of new physical laws, new forms of energy, and perhaps even a new universe. In a way, The destruction caused by the Big Rip might not be the end of everything, but rather a transition, an event that gives rise to a completely different cosmic state. One possibility is that the immense energy released in the final moments of expansion could create conditions similar to the Big Bang. If this happens, then the end of our universe could, paradoxically, serve as the beginning of another. Some physicists speculate that a new bubble of space-time could emerge, containing entirely different physics, fundamental forces, and possibly even new forms of life. But could we, as intelligent beings, somehow navigate this process? Could we find a way to escape the destruction of our own universe and transition into whatever comes next? This is where concepts like wormholes and artificial space-time manipulation come into play. Some theoretical physicists suggest that if a civilization were advanced enough, it might be able to create a kind of cosmic lifeboat, a structure capable of surviving the Big Rip by moving into a different region of space-time. This could involve stabilizing a region of space to resist the effects of phantom energy, or even artificially generating a wormhole to escape into a parallel universe before destruction occurs. Theoretically, if space-time is flexible enough, an advanced civilization could manipulate it in ways that allow them to bypass the constraints of an expanding universe. This could involve engineering exotic matter with negative energy densities, something that, while speculative, has been suggested as a requirement for stable wormholes. If such technology were possible, it might allow for a means of escaping the inevitable doom of the Big Rip. Of course, all of this is purely hypothetical. Right now, we don't have any concrete evidence that phantom energy even exists, let alone that we could manipulate it. But the fact that the expansion of the universe is accelerating remains an undeniable observation, and understanding why this is happening is one of the most important questions in modern physics. Could it be that our current understanding of gravity and spacetime is incomplete? Some alternative theories suggest that what we perceive as dark energy might actually be a side effect of unknown gravitational interactions. Instead of being an actual force, it could be a manifestation of how gravity behaves on cosmic scales, something that Einstein's equations do not yet fully describe. One such idea is that our universe exists as part of a higher dimensional structure. In this scenario, what we perceive as accelerating expansion might actually be an effect of gravitational forces leaking in or out of our three-dimensional space. If this is the case, then dark energy, and by extension, phantom energy, might not be a force at all, but rather an illusion created by our limited perspective of a much larger, multidimensional reality. Another possibility is that dark energy fluctuates over time rather than remaining constant. If this is true, then the acceleration of the universe might not continue indefinitely. Instead, dark energy could eventually weaken, stabilize, or even reverse, leading to a very different outcome. Some models suggest that the expansion of the universe could eventually slow down and lead to a big crunch, where everything collapses back into a single point, potentially setting the stage for another Big Bang. But for now, the most widely accepted interpretation of current data is that the universe's expansion is accelerating, and that if phantom energy exists, it could push that acceleration to a disastrous extreme. The idea of the Big Rip, while speculative, is a logical extension of our current understanding of cosmic acceleration, and if true, it means that the universe is heading toward an unavoidable and violent end. Yet, despite the terrifying nature of this hypothesis, it also opens the door to some of the most profound questions imaginable. If space-time itself is unstable, does that mean that new universes can be born from the destruction of old ones? If the fundamental forces of physics can change, could there be realities where entirely new forms of matter and energy exist? And if an advanced civilization were aware of this impending doom, could they find a way to escape the destruction of their own universe and migrate into another? For now, we can only speculate. The phantom energy hypothesis remains one of the biggest mysteries in modern cosmology, and understanding it will require new discoveries, new theories, and perhaps even a complete revolution in how we think about space, time, and the nature of reality itself. But one thing is certain: the universe is far stranger and more mysterious than we ever imagined, and the deeper we look, the more mind-bending the possibilities become. The implications of the phantom energy hypothesis stretch beyond just the fate of the universe. They challenge the very foundations of physics itself. If the nature of space-time is so fluid that it can be torn apart by an accelerating force, then what does that say about the stability of reality, as we know it? Could it be that the laws of physics themselves are temporary, subject to change under extreme conditions? And if so, does that mean the universe has undergone radical shifts before, perhaps even before the Big Bang? One of the biggest puzzles in modern cosmology is why the universe's expansion seems to be accelerating in the first place. Einstein's original equations of general relativity suggested that gravity should be slowing the expansion down over time. After all, gravity is an attractive force, meaning that the combined pull of all matter in the universe should resist expansion, keeping everything relatively stable. But when astronomers observed distant supernovae in the 1990s, they discovered something completely unexpected. Instead of slowing down, the universe's expansion was actually speeding up. This was the first direct evidence of what we now call dark energy, the mysterious force that appears to be driving this acceleration. But dark energy alone doesn't necessarily lead to the extreme scenario of the Big Rip. Most models of dark energy assume that it remains relatively constant over time, meaning that while the universe keeps expanding, the fundamental structures within it remain intact. Phantom energy, on the other hand, behaves very differently. Instead of maintaining a steady influence, it grows stronger as the universe expands. In other words, the more space expands, the more phantom energy intensifies, which then causes even faster expansion. This runaway effect is what makes phantom energy so dangerous. It's not just pushing galaxies apart, it's fundamentally altering the fabric of the universe in an uncontrollable way. To understand just how extreme this process is, let's consider a timeline of the Big Rip scenario. According to some estimates, if phantom energy exists, the universe could reach this catastrophic end in a matter of tens of billions of years. That might sound like a long time, but in cosmic terms, it's shockingly brief. Right now, the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. If phantom energy continues to grow, it could mean that we're already halfway through the universe's lifespan. The first stage of destruction would begin when galaxy clusters start to come apart. Right now, gravity is strong enough to hold individual galaxies together despite the expansion of space. But in a phantom energy-dominated universe, even this stability would eventually be lost. Over time, entire galaxies would be ripped apart as the force pulling them apart overcomes the gravity holding them together. The beautiful spiral and elliptical galaxies we see today would disintegrate, their stars drifting off into the void. As the expansion accelerates further, the destruction moves to a smaller scale. Star systems themselves, like our own solar system, would begin to unravel. The gravitational bond between the Sun and its planets would weaken, causing planets to drift away. Eventually, even planets themselves would be torn apart as their internal structures succumb to the relentless force of expansion. The very atoms making up these celestial bodies would no longer be able to hold together, leading to the complete disintegration of all known matter. But the most terrifying phase comes in the final moments before the Big Rip. At this stage, the expansion rate becomes so extreme that even subatomic particles, the building blocks of reality, can no longer remain bound together. Electrons, protons, and neutrons would separate, and even quarks, the fundamental components of matter, would be torn apart. At this point, the universe ceases to be anything recognizable. All that remains is an ever-expanding, structureless void, where even the basic laws of physics might no longer apply. If this is truly the fate of the universe, then it raises profound existential questions. Are we living in a universe that is ultimately doomed to self-destruction? Is there any way to escape this fate? Or are we simply at the mercy of cosmic forces beyond our control? Some physicists have speculated that if phantom energy is real, there might be ways to counteract or manipulate it. One idea is that an advanced civilization, if it had enough knowledge and resources, could develop a method to stabilize space-time. This could involve engineering a region of the universe where expansion is slowed or even reversed, creating a kind of safe zone that remains intact while the rest of the universe falls apart. Another possibility is the idea of escaping into another universe. If space-time is fundamentally unstable under extreme conditions, then the final moments before the Big Rip could create opportunities for new physics to emerge. Some theories suggest that the immense energy released during this process could allow for the formation of wormholes, or even entirely new dimensions of space-time. If a civilization had the ability to harness these effects, they might be able to escape into a new reality before the current one is destroyed. But what if we're already seeing evidence of this instability? Some scientists have proposed that certain unexplained cosmic phenomena, such as the observed axis of evil in the cosmic microwave background radiation, could hint at deeper irregularities in the structure of space-time. If the universe is truly accelerating toward a catastrophic event, then it's possible that we're already detecting subtle signs of this impending shift. Another pressing question is whether phantom energy could be an artificial construct. Could it be that what we perceive as dark energy is actually the result of some unknown process, possibly even an external influence? Some speculative theories suggest that our universe might be part of a larger multiverse, and that the accelerating expansion could be caused by interactions with other universes or higher dimensional structures. If this is the case, then understanding phantom energy might require us to look beyond our own universe entirely. Ultimately, the phantom energy hypothesis presents one of the greatest cosmic mysteries of all time. It challenges our understanding of physics, raises profound questions about the fate of the universe, and forces us to confront the possibility that reality itself is far more unstable than we ever imagined. As we continue to study the nature of dark energy and its potential consequences, we may one day unlock the answers to these questions, or we may discover even deeper mysteries that reshape our understanding of existence itself. But for now, all we can do is keep searching, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what we know. Because in the end, the universe isn't just a place, it's a mystery waiting to be unraveled. The deeper we dive into the implications of the phantom energy hypothesis, the more unsettling it becomes. If phantom energy truly exists, then it means that space itself is fundamentally unstable. It's not just expanding, it's accelerating in a way that leads to its own destruction. This isn't just about the universe growing larger, it's about space-time ripping itself apart at every level of reality. But let's take a step back and ask a critical question: what actually causes phantom energy? The problem with trying to understand this force is that we don't even fully understand dark energy itself. Right now, the best model we have is called the cosmological constant, which was originally proposed by Einstein. He added it to his equations to allow for a static universe, but later abandoned it when evidence showed the universe was expanding. However, when scientists discovered that the expansion was accelerating, the cosmological constant made a comeback as the simplest explanation. The cosmological constant assumes that dark energy is a property of space itself, something that remains the same everywhere and never changes over time. But the phantom energy hypothesis suggests otherwise. It proposes that instead of being constant, dark energy is actually evolving. It's getting stronger, which means that its effects become more extreme over time. This brings us to one of the most controversial ideas in physics: the possibility that the vacuum of space isn't actually stable. In most models of the universe, we assume that empty space is truly empty, that it has a certain amount of energy, but that energy remains constant. But what if that's not the case? What if space itself is in a kind of false equilibrium, one that could break down under the right conditions? Some physicists have suggested that the vacuum of space might have different energy states, and what we think of as empty space is actually a temporary condition. If this is true, then phantom energy could be a sign that space is transitioning to a new state, one where the very fabric of reality behaves differently. This idea leads to even more disturbing possibilities. If the vacuum of space can change, then that means the fundamental laws of physics might not be as unchanging as we assume. What we consider the basic forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, might actually be dependent on the current state of space. If phantom energy continues to grow, it could push the universe into a phase where these forces no longer behave the way they do now. The constants that define how matter and energy interact could shift, leading to a universe where atoms themselves can no longer exist. This isn't just speculation, there's actually precedent for it in physics. The early universe underwent several phase transitions as it cooled. When the universe was extremely hot, the fundamental forces were unified into a single force. As it expanded and cooled, these forces separated into the distinct forces we observe today. If something similar happens due to phantom energy, then the next phase transition might be catastrophic, rewriting the rules of physics entirely. One of the biggest mysteries is why we haven't detected any direct evidence of this process yet. If phantom energy is growing stronger over time, shouldn't we already be seeing signs of it? Some scientists have proposed that the effects of phantom energy are currently too weak to be noticeable on small scales but will become overwhelming in the distant future. Others suggest that we might already be observing subtle effects, unexplained anomalies in the cosmic microwave background radiation, irregularities in the distribution of galaxies, or even the behavior of distant quasars. There's also the question of whether phantom energy is truly fundamental, or if it's a byproduct of something else. Could it be that what we call dark energy is actually the influence of a hidden force? Some theories propose that our universe might be interacting with another hidden dimension, and what we perceive as dark energy is actually the result of this interaction. If that's the case, then phantom energy could be a symptom of something even more complex, perhaps the influence of an entirely different universe bleeding into our own. If this scenario is true, then the fate of our universe might not be sealed by the Big Rip. Instead, it could mean that our universe is undergoing a transformation, one that could lead to the creation of something entirely new. Some physicists have speculated that the final moments of a phantom energy-dominated universe could trigger the birth of a new cosmos. If space-time is torn apart, the energy released could seed the formation of a new universe, much like the conditions that led to the Big Bang. But even if this is the case, it doesn't necessarily mean that we could survive such an event. From our perspective, the destruction of space-time would be absolute. Everything, matter, energy, even the very fabric of reality, would be rewritten. The question then becomes, is there any way to escape this fate? One of the most radical ideas is that if phantom energy exists, then an advanced civilization might be able to harness it. If a species were capable of manipulating dark energy, they might find a way to create a stable pocket of space-time, a kind of cosmic arc that could survive the destruction of the surrounding universe. Some theoretical models suggest that if a civilization had a deep enough understanding of physics, they could create a region of space where expansion was slowed or even reversed, effectively creating a bubble that remains intact while the rest of the universe is torn apart. This raises another question: could phantom energy actually be artificial? Could it be that the accelerating expansion of the universe isn't a natural process, but the result of some unknown intelligence? This might sound far-fetched, but some researchers have seriously considered the idea that dark energy could be the result of a vast, universe-scale engineering project. If an advanced civilization wanted to reshape the cosmos, manipulating the fundamental nature of space-time would be one way to do it. But if that were true, what would be the goal? Would they be trying to create new universes? Would they be attempting to escape their own universe before it collapsed? Or would they be doing something even more incomprehensible, something beyond our ability to even imagine? The phantom energy hypothesis presents us with a paradox. On one hand, it suggests that the universe is heading toward an inevitable and catastrophic end. On the other hand, it raises the possibility that this end could be the key to something even greater. If phantom energy is real, then it means that the universe is far more dynamic and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. Right now, we don't have definitive answers. But as our understanding of dark energy grows, we may one day unlock the secrets of the universe's fate. And when that happens, we might discover that the reality we take for granted is just one step in an ever-unfolding cosmic journey, one that stretches beyond anything we can currently comprehend. If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then the universe is not just expanding, it is accelerating toward a future that defies our current understanding of physics. But what does this really mean for us, for the galaxies, for the very structure of space-time itself? To grasp the full scope of this cosmic mystery, we need to push our thinking even further. First, let's consider what happens as the expansion rate continues to accelerate. Right now, the expansion of the universe mostly affects vast distances. Galaxies are moving away from each other, but individual galaxy clusters remain bound by gravity. However, if phantom energy grows in strength, this balance could shift. The acceleration would increase to the point where even the gravitational pull within galaxies would no longer be enough to hold them together. Over time, entire galaxies could begin to unravel. The Milky Way, Andromeda, and all the vast cosmic structures we know would be stretched apart, their stars drifting away from each other at ever-increasing speeds. But the real nightmare scenario begins when phantom energy starts affecting systems on even smaller scales. In our current understanding of cosmology, gravity is the dominant force at local scales. It holds planets in orbit around stars, keeps moons tethered to planets, and ensures that atoms remain bound together. If the influence of phantom energy continues to grow, there will come a point where even these local forces are overwhelmed. Planets will be torn from their orbits, solar systems will disintegrate, and even the structure of matter itself will begin to stretch. This is the stage that physicists call the Big Rip. In the final moments before the universe completely falls apart, even the smallest structures will be affected. The electromagnetic force, which binds atoms together, will no longer be able to resist the pull of expansion. Molecules will be torn apart, atoms will be shredded, and ultimately, even subatomic particles themselves may be ripped apart into fundamental energy. At this point, the universe as we know it will cease to exist, not in a fiery explosion, but in a relentless, accelerating expansion that dissolves everything into an infinite void. But here's where things get even stranger. If the universe reaches this final state, what comes next? Is it truly the end, or is there something beyond the Big Rip? Some scientists speculate that the destruction of space-time itself could trigger the birth of something new. If the universe is fundamentally a quantum system, then even in its destruction, there may be fluctuations, regions where energy pulls together, leading to the spontaneous formation of new space-time. This idea suggests that our universe could be part of an endless cycle, where the end of one cosmos seeds the beginning of another. If this is the case, then the Big Rip might not be an ultimate catastrophe, but instead a rebirth. Some models suggest that when the fabric of space reaches the point of total instability, it could collapse and reconfigure into a new form, perhaps creating another Big Bang in a different kind of universe, one with entirely new physical laws. Of course, this raises another question: could we survive this process? If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then our universe has a built-in expiration date. But could an advanced civilization find a way to escape? Some physicists have speculated that if we could somehow manipulate space-time itself, we might be able to create a stable pocket of reality, essentially a self-contained bubble that resists the effects of phantom energy. One of the most fascinating possibilities is that phantom energy might not be a death sentence, but an opportunity. If we could harness its power, could we use it to create an entirely new universe? Some theoretical physicists have proposed that advanced civilizations, far beyond our current level, might already have the technology to manipulate the fabric of space. If that's the case, then what we perceive as phantom energy might not be a natural force at all. It could be a side effect of a cosmic-scale engineering project, one designed to create new realities. But if that's true, it leads to an even deeper question: what if our universe was created in the same way? If phantom energy is a tool for reshaping reality, then could it be that our own cosmos was born from the collapse of a previous one? This idea leads to a concept known as the multiverse, a vast collection of universes, each born from the remnants of those that came before. If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then we might be witnessing the process that will one day give birth to yet another universe. Right now, we don't have the answers. But every new discovery about dark energy brings us closer to understanding the true nature of our cosmos. And as we continue to unravel these mysteries, we may one day find that the greatest secret of all is that the universe itself is far more alive, dynamic, and ever-changing than we ever imagined. If phantom energy is real, then the implications stretch far beyond the mere expansion of the universe, it suggests a fundamental instability in the very fabric of reality itself. But what if there's more to it than just an inevitable end? What if phantom energy isn't simply a force driving everything apart, but instead, a gateway to something entirely beyond our comprehension? To fully understand the depth of this idea, we need to explore one of the most mind-bending possibilities, that phantom energy could be linked to hidden dimensions of reality. Some physicists have theorized that our universe might not be the only one, rather, it could be part of a much larger structure, one that includes multiple layers of existence. These hidden dimensions might not be accessible to us in our current state, but as phantom energy increases, the very nature of space-time could begin to stretch in ways that expose them. Imagine space itself being pulled apart so violently that its very geometry starts to shift. Some models in string theory suggest that our universe is like a three-dimensional membrane, or brain, floating in a higher dimensional space. Normally, this brain is stable, but if phantom energy keeps growing, it might cause our universe to rip apart in such a way that it collides with, or even merges into, another dimensional structure. If this happens, the end of our cosmos might not mean complete destruction, but rather a transition into an entirely new form of existence. But could anything survive such a transition? If the fundamental forces of our universe are tied to its structure, then when that structure collapses, everything we know, including matter, time, and even the laws of physics, could be rewritten. However, there might be a loophole. If intelligent beings were advanced enough to manipulate energy at a cosmic scale, they might find a way to transition between these states of existence. Some physicists speculate that a civilization millions or even billions of years ahead of us might already understand how to move between different universes. If that's the case, then what we see as phantom energy could be something else entirely, a controlled process, rather than a natural one. This raises an even more unsettling possibility. What if phantom energy isn't just a cosmic accident, but a sign of something artificial? Some theorists have proposed that if advanced civilizations can manipulate space-time, they might also be capable of engineering entire universes. In this scenario, our universe itself could be an experiment, one that is now reaching its intended conclusion. If phantom energy is actually being directed, then its purpose might not be to destroy, but to transform. But transform into what? If we assume for a moment that the growth of phantom energy is leading to a controlled event, then we have to ask what the intended outcome is. One possibility is that our universe is being optimized for something, perhaps for the creation of new forms of intelligence, or even for the emergence of life beyond what we can currently imagine. Some speculative models suggest that as space-time stretches, new physics could emerge, physics that allows for new ways of thinking, new forms of consciousness, or even entirely new kinds of beings that exist outside the constraints of matter as we know it. There's another strange idea to consider. What if the increasing expansion of the universe is actually a way to preserve information? In physics, there's a principle known as the conservation of information, which suggests that nothing is truly lost, even when it appears to be destroyed. Some researchers have suggested that the universe itself might function as a vast information processing system. If that's the case, then the expansion caused by phantom energy could be a mechanism for spreading information across a wider and wider space, ensuring that nothing is ever truly erased. And if this is true, then what happens at the very end? When the universe has expanded beyond all recognition, when even the smallest particles have been torn apart, and when time itself seems to break down, what then? Some physicists speculate that in this final moment, the universe might reach a state where all of its information is compressed into a single point, leading to a kind of cosmic reboot. If this is the case, then the end of our universe might actually be the beginning of another, where all the information from this existence is carried forward into something entirely new. But here's the strangest thought of all. What if we are already living in a universe that has gone through this process before? If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then it might suggest that our cosmos has already undergone multiple cycles of destruction and rebirth. Perhaps the expansion we are witnessing is just the latest in a series of endless transformations, where each universe learns from the ones before it, evolving in ways we can barely comprehend. And if that's true, then the biggest mystery of all might not be how the universe ends, but what it is ultimately becoming. The more we unravel the mysteries of phantom energy, the more it seems like we are staring into the unknown, a force that challenges every assumption we have about the fate of the universe. If phantom energy exists and continues its exponential growth, then the very fabric of reality is on borrowed time. But what if there's more to it? What if the universe isn't simply rushing toward destruction, but towards something else, something beyond our ability to perceive or comprehend? To understand the full weight of this possibility, we have to go deeper. Right now, the prevailing idea is that phantom energy is a runaway force, tearing the universe apart at an ever-increasing rate. But some theories suggest that this expansion might not be as random as we think. What if, instead of a chaotic unraveling, the universe is actually evolving into a higher state of existence? This brings us to one of the most unsettling ideas in physics: the possibility that the universe itself is a kind of computation, an immense cosmic system processing information on an incomprehensible scale. The idea of the universe as a computational entity is not science fiction. It's a concept explored in digital physics, where some theorists argue that reality itself is fundamentally informational. If this is true, then phantom energy might not be a force of destruction, but an intentional shift in the way the universe processes information. In other words, space-time could be restructuring itself to operate under entirely different rules, and we're just along for the ride. But what would that mean for us? If reality is information-based, then everything we know, matter, energy, consciousness, could be part of an evolving system. Some have suggested that the accelerating expansion of the universe might be creating conditions for new types of structures to emerge, ones that exist beyond the constraints of ordinary physics. These structures might not be physical in the way we understand them, but instead, something more abstract. Patterns of information that transcend our current ability to measure or interact with them. There's another possibility. What if the universe is shifting toward a state where intelligence is no longer bound by matter? Right now, life as we know it is limited by physical constraints. We require energy, space, and resources to survive. But if phantom energy continues its rapid expansion, the nature of space-time itself could become so unstable that physical matter can no longer exist in its current form. Instead, consciousness itself might find a way to persist beyond the limits of matter, adapting to a new kind of reality where physical form is no longer necessary. This leads to one of the most extreme ideas in theoretical physics, the concept that the universe could eventually wake up. Some researchers have suggested that the increasing complexity of the cosmos might not be leading to destruction, but to a form of cosmic awareness. If information is the fundamental structure of reality, then the expanding universe could be evolving toward a state where it becomes self-aware, a vast intelligence that emerges as space-time itself transforms. But if that's the case, then we have to ask, are we part of this process? If the universe is moving toward a new state of existence, then what role do we play? Some theories suggest that intelligent life might not just be an accidental byproduct of the cosmos, but an essential part of its evolution. In this view, civilizations like ours are stepping stones in a much larger process, one where intelligence is meant to evolve beyond the limitations of matter and energy, ultimately merging with the expanding universe itself. And then there's the most unsettling possibility of all. What if this has already happened before? If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then it suggests that the universe is heading toward a total transformation. But what if this isn't the first time? Some cosmologists have proposed that our universe could be just one in an endless cycle of expansion and rebirth, where each iteration reaches a point of maximum complexity before transitioning into something else. This would mean that what we see as the end of the universe might actually be just one stage in a much larger process. If phantom energy is accelerating space-time toward a radical transformation, then it's possible that the intelligence that has emerged within this universe, whether human or something far beyond us, could survive in ways we can't yet comprehend. If consciousness is fundamentally tied to information, and if the universe itself is an evolving information system, then the end of physical matter might not mean the end of awareness. Perhaps, in the final moments before the universe is torn apart, intelligence will find a way to step beyond the limitations of time and space, entering a new state of existence that we can't yet imagine. If this is true, then the ultimate mystery of phantom energy isn't just about the destruction of the cosmos, it's about what comes after. What if the universe isn't dying, but being reborn into something else? What if the accelerating expansion isn't an ending, but a transformation? And what if, in some form, we are meant to be a part of it? Right now, we don't have the answers. But the more we learn about phantom energy, the more it seems like we are staring into something far beyond our current understanding, something that could redefine the very nature of existence itself. If phantom energy is more than just a runaway force, if it is truly driving the universe towards some kind of transformation, then the biggest question is, what is it transforming into? Right now, we view the cosmos in terms of space, time, and matter, three-dimensional objects interacting within a four-dimensional framework. But what if the accelerating expansion of the universe is breaking down this structure? What if space and time themselves are unraveling, making way for something entirely different? One of the most mind-bending possibilities is that the universe isn't just expanding but evolving into a higher dimensional reality. Some physicists speculate that our three-dimensional space could be just a surface, a kind of projection from a deeper, more complex structure. If phantom energy is tearing our universe apart, it might not be a true end, in the way we imagine it. Instead, it could be a transition, a shift into a state where space-time no longer operates under the rules we currently understand. To get a sense of how strange this idea is, imagine an ant walking on a piece of paper. To the ant, the paper is its entire world, a two-dimensional plane where everything exists. Now, imagine that the paper starts stretching, thinning out, becoming unstable. To the ant, it might seem like its universe is ending. But in reality, the paper is merging into a three-dimensional space. The ant just lacks the ability to perceive what's happening from a higher dimensional perspective. Now apply that idea to our entire universe. If phantom energy is accelerating expansion in a way that breaks down the structure of space-time, then from our limited perspective, it looks like everything is stretching and being torn apart. But from a higher dimensional view, something entirely different might be happening. Our universe could be merging into a larger, more complex structure that we simply can't perceive yet. This concept is explored in some interpretations of string theory, where our universe is thought to be a three-dimensional brain, floating in a higher dimensional space. If this is true, then phantom energy might not just be expanding our universe, it could be pulling it toward an interaction with something beyond our normal dimensions. And if that's the case, then what seems like destruction from our perspective might actually be the next step in an unimaginable cosmic evolution. But here's where things get even stranger. If space and time themselves are breaking down, then the very concept of before and after might stop making sense. What if, in the final moments of our universe's expansion, time itself ceases to function the way we experience it? What if, instead of an ending, there is a shift, one where everything that ever existed, every moment, every thought, every particle of matter becomes something new? This raises the question, could consciousness survive such a transformation? If phantom energy is leading the universe toward an unknown state, then is there any way for intelligence to persist? Right now, our understanding of consciousness is tied to the physical brain, which relies on stable matter and energy. But if the fundamental structure of reality changes, could intelligence exist in a different form? Some researchers have speculated that consciousness might not be dependent on matter at all, that it could be a property of information itself. If this is true, then intelligence might not be destroyed by the expansion of the universe, but instead, might transition into a new state of existence beyond space and time. And if that's the case, then maybe the end of our universe isn't the end of awareness, but the beginning of something completely new, something we can't even begin to imagine from our current perspective. If phantom energy is truly driving the universe toward an unknowable transformation, then the fundamental structure of reality itself might be shifting in ways we can't yet comprehend. Everything we know, matter, time, space, energy, all of it may be subject to forces that are beyond our current models of physics. And if that's the case, then the universe as we understand it might not just be ending but evolving into something completely different. One of the most difficult aspects of this idea to grasp is what happens to the very fabric of space-time when expansion reaches a critical point. Right now, space-time is what allows everything in the universe to exist. It's the backdrop upon which all motion, all interactions, all events take place. But if phantom energy continues to accelerate expansion infinitely, then at some point, space-time itself could cease to be stable. Imagine a rubber band being stretched further and further, eventually it snaps. But in the case of the universe, there's nothing beyond space-time as we know it, so what happens when it reaches a breaking point? Some physicists have suggested that extreme expansion could lead to a complete restructuring of the fundamental forces that govern reality. Right now, the universe operates according to four fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces. These forces dictate everything from the motion of galaxies to the way atoms hold together. But what if phantom energy reaches a level where these forces no longer behave the way they do today? One possibility is that gravity itself could be overridden. Gravity is what holds galaxies together. It's the force that prevents everything from flying apart. But if expansion becomes powerful enough, then gravitational bonds may no longer be able to resist the stretching of space-time. This could mean that galaxies themselves unravel, then solar systems, then planets, then even atomic structures. The very building blocks of reality could be torn apart, not because of a violent explosion, but because space itself is expanding at such an overwhelming rate that nothing can remain intact. But the implications go even further than that. If space-time is no longer stable, then what happens to time itself? Right now, time appears to move forward in a linear fashion, but that's only because we experience it that way. Some theories suggest that time is actually an emergent property of space-time, a byproduct of the way our universe is structured. If that structure changes, then time may stop behaving in the way we perceive it. Could time itself cease to exist? Or could it become something else entirely? Some physicists have speculated that if space-time becomes unstable, then time might begin to behave unpredictably, looping in strange ways or ceasing to function in a way that makes sense from our perspective. If that's true, then the end of the universe might not be a single moment but an infinite, paradoxical state where all moments collapse into one another. This is where things get even more bizarre. If the universe reaches a state where space and time are no longer stable, then the laws of physics, as we know them, might cease to apply. In other words, what we call reality could completely dissolve. And if that happens, then we have to ask, what comes after? One theory suggests that if the universe is being pulled apart by phantom energy, it might be transitioning into a new phase of existence. Some cosmologists believe that the fabric of reality itself might be part of a larger multiverse, a vast system where universes are constantly being born and destroyed. If this is the case, then our universe could be undergoing a kind of metamorphosis, where the breakdown of space-time leads to the emergence of a completely new reality with different physical laws. But there's another possibility that's even more unsettling. What if phantom energy isn't just expanding our universe, but erasing it? Some researchers have suggested that extreme expansion could eventually stretch space-time to the point where information itself is lost. In physics, information is fundamental. Everything that exists, from the smallest particles to the largest galaxies, contains information about its state. But if space-time is stretched infinitely, then information may become so diluted that it ceases to exist in any recognizable form. This means that not only would all physical structures be torn apart, but even the very memory of them, their fundamental properties, could be erased from existence. This raises one of the most disturbing questions in all of physics. Is reality itself fragile? We assume that the universe follows consistent rules, that information is preserved, that the laws of physics remain stable. But if phantom energy is capable of accelerating expansion to such an extreme degree, then it could mean that nothing is truly permanent, not matter, not space, not time, not even the basic rules of existence. And if that's the case, then we have to wonder, is this the first time this has happened? What if phantom energy isn't just an anomaly of our universe but a fundamental process that happens again and again across the multiverse? What if countless universes before ours have reached this point, expanding until they could no longer sustain structure, dissolving into nothingness before new ones emerge to take their place? If so, then where does that leave us? Are we just temporary patterns of information caught in the inevitable flow of cosmic destruction? Or is there a way for intelligence to persist beyond the collapse of space-time? Some researchers have proposed that if the universe is truly an information processing system, then intelligence might not need to be bound by matter at all. If consciousness is a product of information rather than physical processes, then it's possible that awareness itself could transcend the destruction of the universe. Some have even suggested that if space-time is dissolving, then advanced civilizations, or even consciousness itself, could transition into a purely informational state, existing outside of space and time. This idea ties into concepts from theoretical physics, where some researchers suggest that the fundamental nature of reality might be closer to a computational process than a physical one. If the universe is ultimately an information structure, then the death of space-time might not mean the end of intelligence. It might mean the beginning of a new kind of existence, one that we currently lack the ability to comprehend. But the most profound mystery of all is whether this process is random or intentional. Is phantom energy simply a chaotic force, driving the universe toward an inevitable collapse? Or is it part of a deeper, more intricate cosmic process, one that leads not to destruction, but to something beyond our current understanding? And if the universe is evolving into something new, then the biggest question is, will we, in some form, be a part of it? If the universe is truly evolving into something new, then we have to ask, what exactly is it evolving into? Right now, our understanding of the cosmos is based on the assumption that the fundamental laws of physics remain consistent. Gravity operates the same way today as it did billions of years ago. The speed of light is a constant. Matter and energy behave according to well-defined principles. But if phantom energy continues accelerating the expansion of the universe indefinitely, then those assumptions may no longer hold. What happens when the very fabric of space-time is stretched beyond recognition? Could new forces emerge? Could the rules that govern matter and energy shift into an entirely new framework? Some physicists believe that the expansion driven by phantom energy might not just be tearing apart galaxies, but restructuring the very essence of reality. This means that the universe might not be dying in the traditional sense, but instead transitioning into a different state, one we can't even begin to comprehend. One possibility is that phantom energy could lead to the birth of a new kind of space-time, where the current structure of reality is replaced by something completely foreign. In our universe, space and time are linked. They form a four-dimensional fabric that dictates how everything moves and interacts. But if this fabric is torn apart by extreme expansion, then something else must take its place. Some theories suggest that a new kind of space-time could emerge, with properties that are entirely different from the reality we know. But what would that mean for anything that exists within the universe? If the fundamental constants of nature change, then atoms themselves might cease to function. The forces that hold matter together could dissolve. Even the concept of energy might take on an entirely new meaning. If the laws of physics are rewritten, then everything we take for granted, including the existence of space itself, could be altered beyond recognition. There's also the question of whether anything can survive such a transformation. Right now, we assume that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. But in a universe where expansion is being driven by phantom energy, that rule might not apply anymore. If space itself is stretching faster than light, then what happens to objects caught in the expansion? Do they simply fade into the void, or is there a way for information, or even consciousness, to persist? This brings us to one of the most mind-bending ideas in modern physics: the possibility that our universe is part of a larger, interconnected multiverse. Some researchers believe that phantom energy might not just be expanding our universe but pushing it toward a transition into an entirely new domain of reality. If the multiverse exists, then extreme expansion could act as a kind of bridge, allowing information to pass from one universe to another. Imagine that our universe is like a balloon that's being inflated. If it expands far enough, the structure of space-time might become unstable, creating a rupture that allows it to connect with another realm of existence. In this scenario, phantom energy wouldn't be destroying the universe. It would be transforming it into something else. But if that's the case, then what happens to everything inside it? Do galaxies, stars, and planets dissolve into nothingness, or do they reform in a different way? Some scientists speculate that if space-time itself is changing, then so is the very nature of reality. This means that what we perceive as destruction could actually be the emergence of a new kind of existence. If the forces that govern our universe are temporary, then it's possible that new laws of physics could emerge after the transition, laws that support entirely new forms of matter, energy, and even intelligence. But here's the most disturbing part. If phantom energy can reshape the universe, then does that mean it's happened before? What if this isn't the first time a universe has expanded into oblivion? What if countless other realities have already undergone this transformation, dissolving and reforming in an endless cycle? And if that's true, then what does it say about the nature of existence itself? Some researchers have even suggested that phantom energy might be a fundamental aspect of the multiverse, a mechanism that allows new universes to form from the remnants of old ones. If that's the case, then we might not be witnessing the end of our universe at all. Instead, we could be seeing the birth of something entirely new. But the biggest question of all remains: will anything from our current reality survive the transition? If space-time is dissolving, then the structures that define our existence, atoms, stars, planets, may not make it through. But what about information? What about the very fabric of consciousness itself? There's a theory that suggests that if intelligence is tied to the fundamental structure of reality, then it might not need to be bound by matter at all. If the universe is ultimately an information processing system, then intelligence might be able to persist beyond the collapse of space-time. Some physicists have even proposed that consciousness itself could transition into a purely informational state, one that exists beyond the limitations of physical reality. Could it be that advanced civilizations, or even our own minds, are capable of surviving the end of the universe by evolving into something beyond matter? And if so, then what kind of existence would that be? Would it be a new form of consciousness, free from the constraints of time and space? Or would it be something so unrecognizable that we can't even begin to imagine it? And here's the most unsettling thought: if phantom energy is a force that reshapes reality, then is it possible that something, or someone, is controlling it? Is the expansion of the universe simply a random event, or is it part of a larger cosmic design? Could there be an intelligence behind the transformation of space-time, one that exists outside of our understanding? If that's the case, then what is its purpose? Is the destruction of the universe an accident, or is it part of something bigger? And if we are capable of surviving this transition in some way, then what will we become? Maybe the answers to these questions lie beyond the limits of our current understanding. Maybe the universe isn't just expanding into nothingness but into a higher form of existence, one that we are only beginning to glimpse. If the universe is evolving into something new, then we have to ask, what exactly is it evolving into? Right now, our understanding of the cosmos is based on the assumption that the fundamental laws of physics remain consistent. Gravity operates the same way today as it did billions of years ago. The speed of light is a constant. Matter and energy behave according to well-defined principles. But if phantom energy continues accelerating the expansion of the universe indefinitely, then those assumptions may no longer hold. What happens when the very fabric of space-time is stretched beyond recognition? Could new forces emerge? Could the rules that govern matter and energy shift into an entirely new framework? Some physicists believe that the expansion driven by phantom energy might not just be tearing apart galaxies, but restructuring the very essence of reality. This means that the universe might not be dying in the traditional sense but instead transitioning into a different state, one we can't even begin to comprehend. One possibility is that phantom energy could lead to the birth of a new kind of space-time, where the current structure of reality is replaced by something completely foreign. In our universe, space and time are linked. They form a four-dimensional fabric that dictates how everything moves and interacts. But if this fabric is torn apart by extreme expansion, then something else must take its place. Some theories suggest that a new kind of space-time could emerge, with properties that are entirely different from the reality we know. But what would that mean for anything that exists within the universe? If the fundamental constants of nature change, then atoms themselves might cease to function. The forces that hold matter together could dissolve. Even the concept of energy might take on an entirely new meaning. If the laws of physics are rewritten, then everything we take for granted, including the existence of space itself, could be altered beyond recognition. There's also the question of whether anything can survive such a transformation. Right now, we assume that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. But in a universe where expansion is being driven by phantom energy, that rule might not apply anymore. If space itself is stretching faster than light, then what happens to objects caught in the expansion? Do they simply fade into the void, or is there a way for information, or even consciousness, to persist? This brings us to one of the most mind-bending ideas in modern physics: the possibility that our universe is part of a larger, interconnected multiverse. Some researchers believe that phantom energy might not just be expanding our universe but pushing it toward a transition into an entirely new domain of reality. If the multiverse exists, then extreme expansion could act as a kind of bridge, allowing information to pass from one universe to another. Imagine that our universe is like a balloon that's being inflated. If it expands far enough, the structure of space-time might become unstable, creating a rupture that allows it to connect with another realm of existence. In this scenario, phantom energy wouldn't be destroying the universe. It would be transforming it into something else. But if that's the case, then what happens to everything inside it? Do galaxies, stars, and planets dissolve into nothingness, or do they reform in a different way? Some scientists speculate that if space-time itself is changing, then so is the very nature of reality. This means that what we perceive as destruction could actually be the emergence of a new kind of existence. If the forces that govern our universe are temporary, then it's possible that new laws of physics could emerge after the transition, laws that support entirely new forms of matter, energy, and even intelligence. But here's the most disturbing part: if phantom energy can reshape the universe, then does that mean it's happened before? What if this isn't the first time a universe has expanded into oblivion? What if countless other realities have already undergone this transformation, dissolving and reforming in an endless cycle? And if that's true, then what does it say about the nature of existence itself? Some researchers have even suggested that phantom energy might be a fundamental aspect of the multiverse, a mechanism that allows new universes to form from the remnants of old ones. If that's the case, then we might not be witnessing the end of our universe at all. Instead, we could be seeing the birth of something entirely new. But the biggest question of all remains: will anything from our current reality survive the transition? If space-time is dissolving, then the structures that define our existence, atoms, stars, planets, may not make it through. But what about information? What about the very fabric of consciousness itself? There's a theory that suggests that if intelligence is tied to the fundamental structure of reality, then it might not need to be bound by matter at all. If the universe is ultimately an information processing system, then intelligence might be able to persist beyond the collapse of space-time. Some physicists have even proposed that consciousness itself could transition into a purely informational state, one that exists beyond the limitations of physical reality. Could it be that advanced civilizations, or even our own minds, are capable of surviving the end of the universe by evolving into something beyond matter? And if so, then what kind of existence would that be? Would it be a new form of consciousness, free from the constraints of time and space? Or would it be something so unrecognizable that we can't even begin to imagine it? And here's the most unsettling thought: if phantom energy is a force that reshapes reality, then is it possible that something, or someone, is controlling it? Is the expansion of the universe simply a random event, or is it part of a larger cosmic design? Could there be an intelligence behind the transformation of space-time, one that exists outside of our understanding? If that's the case, then what is its purpose? Is the destruction of the universe an accident, or is it part of something bigger? And if we are capable of surviving this transition in some way, then what will we become? Maybe the answers to these questions lie beyond the limits of our current understanding. Maybe the universe isn't just expanding into nothingness but into a higher form of existence, one that we are only beginning to glimpse. If phantom energy is indeed the key to unlocking a higher form of existence, then we have to ask, what exactly lies beyond the known universe? Right now, we assume that reality is bound by the dimensions we can observe, 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. But what if phantom energy is pushing us toward a reality with completely different rules? Some physicists speculate that the acceleration of the universe could be linked to hidden dimensions, regions of existence that are beyond our perception but fundamentally connected to the structure of space-time. If phantom energy is causing space to expand infinitely, then it might not just be stretching the existing universe, but pulling it towards something else. This raises an unsettling question. Are we moving toward a new form of reality? Or are we being consumed by something beyond our understanding? If phantom energy is an unknown force that influences the fabric of existence, then does it have an ultimate destination? Is it driving the universe toward a final state, or is it part of an ongoing cycle that has happened before and will happen again? There are some theories that suggest phantom energy might not be a natural phenomenon at all. Instead, it could be evidence of an external influence, something acting on the universe from the outside. If this is true, then what could possibly have the power to reshape space-time on such an incomprehensible scale? Could it be a force of nature we haven't yet discovered, or is there something, some kind of intelligence, that exists outside of space and time itself? This brings us to one of the most controversial ideas in modern physics: the possibility that the universe is not a self-contained system, but rather a simulation or a construct created by something beyond it. If phantom energy is an unnatural force, then is it possible that it's being introduced into our universe by an external entity? Some researchers have theorized that if the universe is a kind of programmed system, one that follows a set of rules, then phantom energy might be a deliberate modification to those rules. In other words, the expansion of the universe might not be a random occurrence, but an intentional process that serves a specific purpose. But what could that purpose be? Is the universe being expanded to make room for something? Is it being prepared for a transformation? Or is it simply being erased? If space-time itself is being stretched apart, then does that mean the information within it, the matter, the energy, even the consciousness that exists, will simply be lost? Or is there a way for something to persist beyond the boundaries of a dissolving universe? If phantom energy is a force that reshapes reality, then could it also serve as a means of transportation? Could it be possible that instead of destroying everything, phantom energy is actually transferring the universe, or at least parts of it, into another form of existence? There is a theory that suggests that the end of the universe could actually be the beginning of something new. If space-time collapses or transitions into a new state, then does that mean a new reality emerges in its place? Some physicists believe that the expansion caused by phantom energy could lead to a phase transition, a fundamental shift in the nature of existence, similar to how water turns into ice or steam. If this is true, then the universe might not be ending at all. Instead, it could be entering a new state, one where the laws of physics are completely different from what we currently understand. But if that's the case, then what happens to everything within the universe? Do galaxies, stars, and planets survive this transition? Or do they dissolve into something unrecognizable? Some theories suggest that if phantom energy becomes strong enough, it could stretch space to such an extreme that quantum effects begin to dominate. This means that instead of a traditional, Big Rip scenario where everything is torn apart, the universe could enter a quantum state, one where reality itself becomes uncertain. If this happens, then it's possible that everything we know could be rewritten in a way that defies our current understanding. And this raises perhaps the most mind-bending question of all. If phantom energy can reshape reality, then is it possible that consciousness itself could survive the transition? If the fundamental nature of space-time is changing, then does that mean intelligence must change with it? Could it be that the expansion of the universe is not just a physical transformation, but an evolution of reality itself? There are some who believe that intelligence is not merely a product of the physical universe, but something more fundamental, something that exists beyond matter and energy. If this is true, then could it be possible that phantom energy is driving the universe toward a state where intelligence is no longer bound by physical form? What if the expansion of space-time is not a catastrophe, but a process leading toward a higher form of existence? If the forces that shape the universe are changing, then is it possible that we are changing as well? Could phantom energy be the key to unlocking a new form of reality, one where consciousness itself is no longer tied to the physical laws we currently understand. And if that's true, then does it mean that the universe is evolving towards something greater? Or is it simply dissolving into the unknown? Right now, we don't have the answers. But one thing is certain: phantom energy is one of the greatest mysteries in the universe, and its true nature may be far stranger than we could ever imagine. If phantom energy is truly the driving force behind the universe's runaway expansion, then what does that say about our place in the cosmos? If space itself is stretching toward infinity, then does that mean everything within it, including us, is ultimately insignificant? Or does it mean that we are part of something far bigger than we ever imagined? One of the most haunting possibilities is that phantom energy represents a transition from one form of existence to another. If the expansion of the universe is accelerating indefinitely, then could it be a sign that the cosmos is not a closed system, but rather part of a much larger structure? Some physicists speculate that our universe may be nothing more than a temporary phase in a much grander reality. If this is the case, then what comes next? It's possible that the nature of existence itself is changing. If space-time is being stretched to its limits, then does that mean the fundamental building blocks of reality are breaking down? And if so, does that breakdown include time itself? The idea that time might not be a fixed property of the universe is one of the most unsettling concepts in modern physics. If phantom energy continues to accelerate the expansion of the cosmos, then could it lead to a future where time no longer flows in a way we can comprehend? Some physicists have proposed that as the universe expands, the nature of time may become increasingly distorted. If phantom energy continues to push the fabric of reality apart, then could time itself begin to stretch? Could we reach a point where time slows to a crawl, or even stops altogether? If so, then what would that mean for anything that exists within the universe? There's a theory that suggests that time is not a fundamental property of the universe, but rather a byproduct of the way we perceive reality. If this is true, then phantom energy could be reshaping not only the structure of space but the very way we experience time itself. If the expansion of the universe continues indefinitely, then could it mean that time, as we know it, is running out? And if time itself is unraveling, then what happens to everything that exists within it? Could phantom energy be leading us toward a reality where past, present, and future no longer have any meaning? If the structure of space-time collapses, then could it mean that cause and effect itself ceases to function? There are some who believe that if the universe is being pulled apart by an unknown force, then it could be a sign that reality itself is an unstable construct. If the nature of existence is shifting, then could it mean that everything we perceive as real is nothing more than a temporary illusion? And if so, then what happens when that illusion collapses? Some physicists speculate that if phantom energy continues to dominate the universe, then it may eventually lead to a complete breakdown of all known physical laws. If the expansion of space becomes extreme enough, then even the fundamental forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, could begin to unravel. If this happens, then what remains? Does the universe dissolve into nothingness? Or does it transition into something beyond our comprehension? Some theories suggest that if the laws of physics are changing, then it could mean that the universe is evolving into a new state, one where the rules of reality itself are rewritten. But if this is true, then does it mean that we are evolving along with it? There's a possibility that if phantom energy is driving the universe toward a new state of existence, then consciousness itself may also be forced to adapt. If space-time is collapsing or transitioning into something new, then could it mean that intelligence is evolving into a form that is no longer bound by the limitations of physical matter? Some researchers believe that if the nature of the universe is shifting, then it could mean that the definition of life itself is about to change. If phantom energy is leading us toward a future where physical laws no longer apply, then does that mean intelligence could persist beyond the destruction of the cosmos? And if so, what would that intelligence look like? Would it be possible for consciousness to exist outside of space and time? If the expansion of the universe continues indefinitely, then does it mean that intelligence must eventually find a way to exist beyond the constraints of physical reality? Or is it possible that phantom energy itself is a form of intelligence? If it is not a random force, but something with a purpose, then what is that purpose? Is it guiding the universe towards something greater? Or is it simply an unstoppable force driving us toward an unknown fate? Right now, we don't have the answers. But one thing is clear: phantom energy is one of the greatest and most terrifying mysteries in modern physics. It could be the key to understanding the fate of the cosmos, or it could be the force that ultimately brings everything to an end. If phantom energy is truly the key to the universe's ultimate fate, then the implications stretch far beyond what we can currently comprehend. It challenges everything we thought we knew about space, time, and even the fundamental laws that govern reality itself. But to understand what this means for us, we have to go deeper, far beyond the surface-level theories and into the unsettling possibilities that lie at the heart of this cosmic mystery. One of the most pressing questions is whether phantom energy is something entirely new, or if it's always been a hidden component of the universe. Did it emerge as a dominant force only in recent cosmological history, or has it been lurking in the background since the beginning of time, waiting to take control? If phantom energy has always existed, then why has it remained undetected for so long? Some scientists argue that it could have been a minuscule factor during the early universe but has since grown stronger as space itself expanded. This raises a disturbing possibility. Could the universe be evolving in a way that makes the influence of phantom energy inevitable? If this energy is increasing as space expands, then that means the larger the universe gets, the stronger its effects become. This creates a feedback loop, where expansion fuels more expansion, pushing the universe toward an eventual breaking point. But what happens at that breaking point? One of the scariest scenarios is the idea that the universe could be ripped apart at the atomic level. As phantom energy accelerates the expansion of space, it could eventually reach a point where even the forces holding atoms together are overpowered. In this scenario, known as the Big Rip, galaxies would first be torn from each other, then solar systems would unravel, then planets would be shredded, and finally atoms themselves would be pulled apart, leaving behind a universe of pure, structureless energy. But if this is truly the endgame of phantom energy, then when will it happen? Some calculations suggest that if the effects of phantom energy continue to increase, the Big Rip could occur within tens of billions of years. However, if phantom energy is more extreme than we currently believe, then this apocalyptic scenario could unfold much sooner than we expect. And here's an even bigger question: is there any way to stop it? Could there be an unknown force in the universe that counteracts the effects of phantom energy? Some scientists speculate that if dark matter, or some yet undiscovered form of exotic matter, can exert enough gravitational influence, it might slow the expansion down, delaying or even preventing the Big Rip. But what if phantom energy isn't just a random force? What if it's something deliberate? This is where things take a turn into the truly bizarre. Some theoretical physicists have speculated that phantom energy could be the result of an underlying structure to reality that we don't yet understand. Could the accelerating expansion of the universe be a sign that our reality is breaking down? There's a concept in physics that suggests the universe might be a kind of simulation, an advanced, structured system governed by rules we are only beginning to comprehend. If this is the case, then could phantom energy be a sign that this simulation is running out of resources? If space-time itself is being pulled apart, then does that mean the underlying framework of reality is failing? If this is true, then the implications are terrifying. It could mean that we are part of a temporary structure, one that was never meant to last forever. And if phantom energy continues to dominate, then does that mean reality itself will eventually cease to exist? But here's another mind-bending possibility. What if phantom energy is not destructive, but transformative? Some physicists have suggested that rather than leading to the complete destruction of the universe, phantom energy might be driving space toward an entirely new state of existence. Instead of a catastrophic ending, could it be a transition into a new form of reality, one that operates under completely different physical laws? If this is the case, then what does that mean for everything that exists within the universe? Could intelligent life survive such a transformation? Would consciousness itself have to evolve into something unrecognizable in order to persist in this new state? And what if phantom energy is part of a larger cosmic cycle? Could it be possible that the universe expands to a certain point, then undergoes a phase shift into something completely different? If so, then does that mean that previous universes have existed before us, only to be reshaped and reborn through the effects of phantom energy? If we are living in a universe that is being driven toward an inevitable transformation, then the biggest question is this: what comes next? Could there be another stage of reality beyond what we can currently perceive? Could phantom energy be the key to unlocking an entirely new form of existence, one where space, time, and even consciousness itself operate under rules we cannot yet comprehend? These questions remain unanswered. But one thing is certain: phantom energy is not just a scientific mystery, it is a cosmic puzzle that forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about existence itself. If phantom energy is indeed pushing the universe toward an inevitable transformation, then what are we actually witnessing? Are we observing the unraveling of reality, or are we on the brink of something far greater than we can comprehend? The unsettling truth is that our understanding of the cosmos is still in its infancy. The laws of physics, which we treat as absolute, may only be approximations, useful tools for describing the universe in its current state, but incapable of predicting what happens when reality itself changes. One of the biggest unknowns about phantom energy is whether it is truly a fundamental force of nature or merely a side effect of something deeper. Could it be the manifestation of a hidden structure in the universe? Some scientists suggest that what we perceive as phantom energy may actually be an illusion caused by interactions between different dimensions. If extra dimensions exist beyond the three spatial dimensions and time that we experience, then could phantom energy be a consequence of forces leaking into our universe from a higher dimensional reality? If that's the case, then we need to ask, what is this other reality? Is it part of our universe, or is it something completely separate? If phantom energy is evidence of an external influence, then could we be living inside a universe that is interacting with another, unknown realm? Some theories suggest that our universe might be a brane, a three-dimensional surface floating within a higher dimensional space. If another brane exists nearby, could phantom energy be the result of an unseen gravitational pull between these branes? If so, then does this mean our universe could eventually collide with another, reshaping everything in an instant? But let's take this even further. What if phantom energy is not just pulling space apart, but pulling time apart as well? The very idea of time is something we take for granted, but what if time itself is being stretched by the accelerating expansion of the universe? Could this mean that time is slowing down on a cosmic scale, making each moment last longer and longer? If phantom energy continues to grow, could we reach a point where time stops altogether? And here's where things get really strange. What if we're already seeing the effects of phantom energy on time, but we just don't realize it? Some physicists speculate that as space expands, the rate at which time flows might be changing in ways that are imperceptible to us. This raises a terrifying possibility. Could phantom energy be altering our perception of reality without us even knowing? Could the flow of time be different in distant parts of the universe, leading to strange, unexplained phenomena that we can't yet understand? But there's an even bigger problem. If phantom energy is distorting time, then what does this mean for the ultimate fate of the universe? Some models suggest that the acceleration of space could eventually reach a point where the past itself is erased. This means that as the universe expands, earlier moments in time might cease to exist altogether, leaving only the ever-accelerating present. If this is true, then does that mean the history of the universe will eventually vanish? Will there come a point where nothing remains of the past? No stars, no galaxies, no memories, only an ever-expanding void? But if the past can be erased, then what does that mean for us? Could our own existence be temporary in a way we never imagined? Could phantom energy eventually rewrite history itself, altering the fabric of time so drastically that even the concept of cause and effect breaks down? And if time itself is unstable, then what happens to the future? If phantom energy continues to accelerate the expansion of the universe, then could it eventually create a state where the future is just as uncertain as the past? Could reality become so distorted that the laws of physics themselves change from moment to moment, leading to a universe where nothing is predictable and nothing is permanent? Some physicists have even proposed that phantom energy could eventually lead to a complete reversal of time. If space continues to expand indefinitely, then could there come a point where the direction of time itself flips? If so, then what would that even mean? Would consciousness experience time in reverse? Would cause and effect switch places, making the future determine the past? Would everything we know, everything we've ever experienced, play out backward in a bizarre, incomprehensible reversal of reality? And then there's one final, terrifying possibility. What if phantom energy is not just expanding space, not just distorting time, but actively reshaping the very fabric of existence itself? Could it be that reality, as we know it, is only temporary, and that phantom energy is the mechanism that will eventually break it down? If the fundamental constants of physics begin to change, then does that mean the universe as we understand it will cease to function? Will gravity, electromagnetism, and even the structure of atoms dissolve into something unrecognizable? If so, then is there any way to escape? Could intelligent life find a way to survive beyond the destruction of the universe? If reality itself is collapsing, then is there a way to transcend it, to move beyond the constraints of space and time before everything dissolves into nothingness? Or, perhaps, this isn't the end at all. Maybe phantom energy is not a force of destruction but of creation. Maybe the universe isn't breaking apart, it's evolving. Could it be that this acceleration is pushing space toward a new state of existence? If so, then what comes after the end of the universe? Is there another reality beyond our own, waiting to emerge? If phantom energy is truly leading us toward the end of everything, then one final question remains. Is there anything beyond the end? If phantom energy is more than just a force of destruction, if it is instead the catalyst for something beyond our understanding, then what exactly is it transforming the universe into? Could it be that the very fabric of reality is being rewritten into something new? If so, does that mean our current understanding of space, time, and existence itself is only a temporary phase, one that is destined to be replaced by something fundamentally different? Some physicists have speculated that extreme cosmic expansion could lead to the birth of an entirely new state of physics. In this scenario, as phantom energy stretches space beyond its limits, the structure of matter might collapse into a completely different form. This isn't just a universe ending, it's a universe reprogramming itself. But what would the rules of this new reality be? Would new forces replace the ones we know? Would new forms of life be possible? And most importantly, could anything from our current universe survive the transition? If phantom energy is accelerating the universe toward a new phase of existence, then perhaps we should think about this process not as an apocalypse, but as a metamorphosis. Just as a caterpillar undergoes an unimaginable transformation before emerging as a butterfly, could the universe be in the process of breaking itself down in order to become something greater? If so, then what is it becoming? And does this mean that destruction is merely an illusion, just a necessary part of cosmic evolution? But let's take this even further. If phantom energy is rewriting the universe, could it be possible that this process has happened before? Could the universe have already gone through previous transformations, shifting from one form of reality to another in a way that we can't yet comprehend? If this has happened in the past, then does that mean that phantom energy isn't a new force, but an ancient one that has always existed, silently guiding the universe through endless cycles of destruction and rebirth? And if that's true, then we have to ask, who or what exists beyond these cycles? If the universe has changed before, then does that mean some form of intelligence might have witnessed these transformations? Could there be beings, forces, or even consciousnesses that exist outside of the changes imposed by phantom energy? If so, are they watching us now? Are they aware of what is coming? Could they even intervene in the process? Some physicists have suggested that phantom energy might not just be a natural phenomenon, but an indication of something deeper, something intentional. If the universe is evolving, then is it evolving toward a goal? Is there a direction to this change? Could it be that phantom energy is not random, but a designed mechanism for pushing the universe toward a higher state of existence? And if that's the case, then who or what designed it? Is there some form of intelligence embedded in the laws of physics themselves, ensuring that the universe moves through these transformations? Or could it be that the universe itself is alive in some way, that it is a self-aware entity that is guiding its own evolution? If phantom energy is rewriting the universe, then it forces us to question everything we think we know about existence. If reality is malleable, then what is truly real? If time is being altered, then what does past and future even mean? If the fabric of space is changing, then what lies beyond the edges of our perception? Could there be an entire hidden layer of reality that we are only just beginning to glimpse? But the most unsettling question remains: what happens when the transformation is complete? If phantom energy reaches its ultimate conclusion, then does that mean our universe will cease to exist as we know it? Will everything be erased, or will it be replaced by something even greater? Will space itself become something new, something so alien that our current minds cannot even begin to comprehend it? And if that's the case, then what will we become? Will life, intelligence, and consciousness be able to survive this transition, or will we vanish along with the universe we currently inhabit? Or, perhaps, will we evolve alongside it, becoming something beyond what we can even imagine? Phantom energy forces us to confront the deepest, most profound mysteries of existence. It challenges our understanding of physics, time, space, and reality itself. But most of all, it leaves us with one final, terrifying question: are we ready for what comes next? If phantom energy is not just a force of destruction but a mechanism of transformation, then we must ask, what is the universe transforming into? What is the final state of reality if the expansion never stops? If the laws of physics themselves are being rewritten, then the very concept of existence, as we know it, may be temporary. Could phantom energy be pushing the universe toward a state where space, time, and even matter no longer behave in any way we recognize? One possibility is that phantom energy is driving the universe toward what some physicists call a true vacuum state. In this scenario, the vacuum of space itself is not as empty as it seems but is instead a kind of unstable quantum field. If phantom energy continues to accelerate expansion, it could trigger a phase transition, causing the vacuum of space to collapse into a new, more stable state. If that happens, then everything within our universe, from galaxies to atoms, might suddenly dissolve into this new vacuum. This would be a kind of cosmic reset, a transformation so extreme that nothing from our current universe would survive. But is this collapse truly the end? Or is it the beginning of something beyond comprehension? Some physicists have speculated that if our universe transitions into a different vacuum state, it could create an entirely new set of physical laws. The constants of nature, things like the speed of light, the strength of gravity, and even the fundamental nature of particles, might be completely different. In that case, what emerges after the collapse might be a universe unrecognizable to us, where matter and energy exist in forms that we cannot even begin to imagine. And if that's the case, then we have to ask, has this happened before? Could our current universe have been born from the collapse of a previous one? If phantom energy has always been present, has it been driving the universe through endless cycles of transformation? If so, then the universe we live in may not be the first, and it may not be the last. But what if phantom energy does not lead to a vacuum collapse? What if the expansion simply continues forever? If the universe never stops expanding, then we face an even more unsettling possibility: the eventual death of all matter itself. As phantom energy stretches space at an ever-increasing rate, atoms and particles will be pulled apart. Not just galaxies or planets, but the very building blocks of reality, protons, neutrons, and even the quantum fields that sustain them, could be torn into oblivion. In this case, there is no collapse into a new universe. There is only an infinite, cold, and empty void where existence itself has been erased. But even here, we must ask, is true nothingness even possible? If phantom energy expands the universe to the point where everything is torn apart, does that mean existence simply stops? Or does something else emerge from the void? Some theories suggest that the energy driving this expansion could create new space-time structures, giving rise to completely new regions of reality. In other words, the destruction of our universe might seed the birth of countless new ones. If this is true, then phantom energy is not an ending at all. It is a cosmic birth mechanism, generating new universes from the ashes of the old. If this cycle is infinite, then our own universe may have been born from the destruction of a previous one. And if that's the case, then what came before us? What kind of reality existed before our universe was set in motion? And perhaps the most unsettling question, if new universes are constantly being created, could there be other forms of intelligence out there that exist beyond our understanding? Could civilizations exist that are not bound by the physical laws we know, but instead live in the strange realities that phantom energy may be creating? If so, are they aware of us? Have they seen this process unfold before? Could they have even harnessed phantom energy to control the fate of their own universes? If there are beings or entities that have survived multiple universal transformations, then they may possess knowledge that goes far beyond anything we can comprehend. They might understand what phantom energy truly is, not as a force of destruction, but as a fundamental component of reality itself. If so, then does that mean the end of our universe is not an accident, but something intentional? Could it be that phantom energy is a design, a force meant to ensure that no universe remains static forever? If that's the case, then who or what designed it? Is there an intelligence embedded within the fabric of the cosmos, guiding this process? Or is the universe itself a self-evolving system, constantly reshaping itself into new forms? And if phantom energy is guiding the universe toward an inevitable transformation, then what does that mean for us? If our current form of existence is temporary, then what comes after? Are we meant to vanish along with the universe? Or is there a way for intelligence to transcend this change? Some have speculated that highly advanced civilizations might seek a way to escape the effects of phantom energy. If they knew their universe was doomed, they might try to find a way to migrate, to leave this decaying reality behind and enter a new one. But if that's possible, how would they do it? Would they attempt to create a pocket of stable space-time, shielding themselves from the collapse? Would they try to move into a parallel dimension, beyond the reach of phantom energy? Or, most disturbingly, could they attempt to harness phantom energy itself, using it as a tool to manipulate reality? If an advanced civilization found a way to control phantom energy, then they could theoretically alter the fundamental structure of the universe itself. They could accelerate or decelerate cosmic expansion, shaping the fate of space and time according to their will. If such beings exist, could they be responsible for the way our universe is unfolding? Could phantom energy itself be the result of some unknown intelligence tampering with the structure of reality? If that's the case, then what is their goal? Are they trying to guide the universe toward a specific state? Are they attempting to create the conditions for a new kind of existence? Or are they simply trying to escape their own destruction, manipulating the laws of physics to survive the inevitable end? And if an intelligence exists that can control phantom energy, then the most terrifying question is this: could they do the same to us? If they have the power to shape reality, then could they already be influencing our universe in ways we don't understand? Could our perception of time, space, and existence itself be nothing more than a construct, something artificially shaped by forces beyond our comprehension? Phantom energy forces us to rethink everything we believe about the universe. It challenges our understanding of space, time, and the very nature of reality. It raises the possibility that our universe is not permanent, that everything we know is part of an ongoing transformation. But most of all, it leaves us with a single, inescapable question. Are we ready for what comes next? If the universe is heading toward an inevitable transformation driven by phantom energy, then the question becomes, what is our role in this process? Are we passive observers, simply awaiting our fate, or do we have the ability to influence what happens next? Could human intelligence, or intelligence of any kind, find a way to navigate the shifting cosmic landscape that phantom energy is creating? To answer this, we have to consider what it means to exist in a universe that is not stable. For much of human history, we assumed that the cosmos was permanent, that space, time, and the physical laws that govern reality were fixed and unchanging. Even as we learned about the birth and death of stars, the expansion of space, and the evolution of galaxies, we still held on to the idea that the universe itself was a reliable, enduring framework. But phantom energy shatters that assumption. It tells us that even the fabric of space-time is not guaranteed to remain as it is. It is not a stable foundation, it is a temporary condition, one that is actively shifting beneath our feet. And if that is true, then it means that nothing is permanent, not planets, not galaxies, not even the very forces that hold atoms together. So where does that leave us? What happens to intelligence in a universe where the rules are constantly changing? Could we find a way to adapt to these changes? Could we develop an understanding of physics that allows us to escape the pull of phantom energy, or even harness it to our advantage? Some physicists have speculated that if there is a way to survive the effects of phantom energy, it would require an understanding of space-time far beyond anything we currently possess. It might involve discovering new dimensions of reality, places where the laws of physics do not behave the way they do in our universe. If phantom energy is rewriting the structure of the cosmos, then perhaps it is possible to find a way out, to step beyond the boundaries of this reality, and into something else. But how? What kind of technology or knowledge would allow us to make that leap? One possibility is that phantom energy itself could hold the key. If we could somehow understand its nature, not just as an accelerating force, but as a fundamental component of the universe, then we might be able to manipulate it. If phantom energy is causing space to expand, could we find a way to control where and how it expands? Could we use it to create stable pockets of space-time that remain unaffected by the universe's runaway growth? Some theoretical physicists have even suggested that phantom energy might be connected to the concept of extra dimensions. If our universe is expanding due to forces we do not fully understand, could those forces be coming from outside our observable reality? Could phantom energy be a sign that our universe is interacting with a higher dimensional space, a realm beyond the limits of what we can perceive? And if so, then the most important question is this: can we reach it? Could there be a way to access these higher dimensions before our universe is torn apart? If phantom energy is a bridge to something beyond our current understanding, then it may hold the secret to escaping the destruction it causes. If there are extra dimensions, could we move into them, leaving behind a doomed universe and entering a reality that is not subject to the same fate? Or, even more dramatically, could we already be in the process of transitioning to another state of existence without realizing it? If the very nature of space and time is being rewritten, then perhaps consciousness itself is being pulled towards something new. If phantom energy is stretching the fabric of reality, could it also be stretching the boundaries of perception, altering the way intelligence experiences time, space, and even thought itself? Some speculative theories suggest that as the universe approaches a state of extreme expansion, the very concept of individual existence might dissolve. If space is stretching infinitely, then so is information, and if consciousness is fundamentally tied to the structure of reality, then it, too, might undergo a transformation. If intelligence is something embedded within the fabric of the cosmos, then what happens when that fabric is pulled apart? Does intelligence vanish along with everything else? Or does it become something else, something we cannot yet comprehend? And if intelligence does survive in some new form, what would that existence look like? If space and time lose their current structure, could consciousness exist outside of those constraints? Could we transition into a form of awareness that is no longer bound by the familiar dimensions of reality? If phantom energy is a sign that our universe is heading towards something radically different, then maybe our understanding of life itself is incomplete. Maybe what we think of as existence, our perception of self, of time, of the physical world, is only a temporary phase. Perhaps consciousness is something that is meant to evolve along with the universe, adapting to new forms of reality, as old ones collapse. And if that's true, then perhaps the end of our universe is not an end at all. Perhaps it is simply a shift, a transition from one kind of existence to another. But if that is the case, then the biggest question of all remains unanswered. What comes after? If the universe is indeed heading toward a radical transformation, the nature of what comes next is a mystery that goes beyond anything we can currently comprehend. But if we take the phantom energy hypothesis seriously, it suggests that reality, as we know it, will not simply fade away or collapse into nothingness. Instead, it will be violently ripped apart, leading to consequences that could extend far beyond the physical universe. But what if this isn't just about the physical universe? What if everything, matter, space, time, even thought itself, is subject to this expansion? Could it be that consciousness is somehow tied to the fabric of space-time, and as the universe stretches, so too does the very structure of thought and perception? It might seem like science fiction, but some physicists and philosophers have speculated that the nature of intelligence, especially in an expanding universe, might not be as stable as we assume. If space itself is being torn apart, then the information that makes up consciousness could also be affected. Imagine for a moment that thoughts, memories, and awareness itself are not confined to the brain, but are instead deeply intertwined with the structure of space-time. If this is true, then as phantom energy causes space to expand, it might also be stretching consciousness into something unrecognizable. This raises an even deeper question: what is the ultimate destination of a universe consumed by phantom energy? Does the expansion go on forever, pushing everything apart until only a void remains? Or does the universe undergo some kind of transformation into a new state? One possibility is that the universe, rather than simply disintegrating, is evolving into something beyond our ability to comprehend. If phantom energy is a force that originates from outside our current understanding of physics, could it be leading us toward an entirely new kind of reality? Some theories suggest that instead of an endless expansion into cold, empty nothingness, the universe might reach a point where its very structure is rewritten. If the fundamental laws of physics can be altered by the effects of phantom energy, then perhaps the universe is not dying, it is shedding its old form and transitioning into something else. But what could that something else be? If space is being stretched infinitely, then the structure of reality itself might shift into a form that is completely unrecognizable to us. Dimensions could split, merge, or fold in ways that defy our understanding. Time could cease to function in a linear way. The very concept of existence, as we know it, might break down into something beyond comprehension. Could it be that phantom energy is not just destroying the universe, but is instead creating a gateway to a new kind of existence? Could it be pushing reality toward a higher dimensional state, one where entirely new forms of physics, intelligence, and even life could emerge? If so, then we are faced with an even greater question: is this process natural, or is it being directed by something? If phantom energy is a force that originates from beyond our observable universe, could it be the result of an unknown intelligence? Could an advanced form of life, beyond anything we can comprehend, be manipulating the expansion of the cosmos for a purpose we cannot yet understand? Or, even more unsettling, could the expansion of our universe be the birth of something else? Perhaps our universe is not truly ending, but instead undergoing a kind of cosmic rebirth. Maybe the forces driving its expansion are part of a larger, universal cycle, one where old universes stretch and evolve into entirely new states of being. This could mean that what we perceive as destruction is actually creation. That the end of one form of reality is the beginning of another. That even as the fabric of space is ripped apart, something new is emerging from the chaos. But if that is the case, then there is one final, chilling question we have to ask. Will we be part of it? Or will we be left behind, lost in the remnants of a universe that no longer exists? The terrifying reality of the phantom energy hypothesis is that it doesn't just suggest the universe is expanding, it suggests that it's expanding at an accelerating and unstoppable rate, to the point where the very fabric of reality itself will be torn apart. But if that's true, then what does that mean for everything within the universe? What does it mean for time? For space? For life itself? And is there any possibility, no matter how small, that we could survive such an event? If phantom energy continues to accelerate the expansion of the universe, then at some point, everything will begin to stretch. At first, it's just the large-scale structure of the cosmos, the galaxies, the vast clusters of matter scattered across the universe. But as the force grows stronger, the space between stars will expand. Entire solar systems will be pulled apart, separating planets from their stars in an irreversible cosmic drift. At this stage, the night sky would already look dramatically different. The distant galaxies that once dotted the horizon would vanish beyond the cosmic event horizon, their light redshifted into oblivion. Space itself would become darker, lonelier, emptier, until even our own galaxy begins to feel the effects. The force of phantom energy would soon reach a point where even the bonds holding galaxies together can no longer withstand it. The Milky Way, Andromeda, and all of the neighboring galaxies within our local group would be stretched apart until they no longer resemble the galaxies we know today. But it doesn't stop there. As the expansion accelerates, phantom energy reaches into smaller and smaller structures. The space between individual stars begins to expand at an accelerating rate, causing entire planetary systems to disperse. At this stage, the Sun, if it still exists by then, would no longer hold on to its planets. Earth would drift away, no longer bound by the familiar gravitational forces that have governed its motion for billions of years. At first, the expansion might seem slow, almost imperceptible. But as it accelerates, the destruction becomes unavoidable. Even as planets drift apart, phantom energy continues its relentless pull, reaching into the very structure of matter itself. Once it reaches the level of solar systems, it begins to stretch even the bounds that hold individual planets together. Imagine the Earth being ripped apart, not by an explosion, but by the force of space itself expanding inside it. Mountains would separate from continents. The oceans would stretch into unrecognizable forms. Even the air itself, the very molecules that make up our atmosphere, would begin to thin out as space expands within them. At this stage, it's clear that nothing can survive. But the destruction still isn't over. The next level of expansion reaches down to the scale of atoms. The very forces that hold atoms together, electromagnetic forces, the nuclear forces that bind protons and neutrons, are not immune to the effects of phantom energy. As the expansion continues, even these fundamental forces begin to fail. Atoms themselves would start to stretch, and then snap apart. The very particles that make up reality, quarks, electrons, everything, would be ripped from one another, never to interact again. This moment is sometimes referred to as the Big Rip, the final stage where literally everything is torn apart, not by an explosion, not by fire, not by some cataclysmic collision, but simply by the unstoppable expansion of space itself. But here's the most terrifying part: we have no way of knowing when this might happen. Some calculations suggest it could be billions of years from now, long after the last stars have faded away. But other models suggest that the acceleration could become unstable at any moment. If phantom energy is real, the universe could be only a few 100 million years away from total destruction, or even less. And this leads to a truly horrifying question. Could it be happening right now, just beyond what we can observe? Because of the way light travels, we can only see a limited part of the universe. There could already be a horizon of destruction expanding outward, beyond the edge of our perception, where space has already begun tearing apart at the atomic level. If that's true, then the destruction is already spreading. And one day, it will reach us. But what happens after the Big Rip? Does anything remain? Or does the universe simply cease to exist? Some physicists speculate that if phantom energy is a fundamental part of the universe, then space itself might not truly disappear. It might transition into something else entirely. Maybe, in the final moments, the expansion will reach such an extreme level that space undergoes a phase change, similar to how water turns to steam. What if the destruction of our universe is simply the beginning of something new? If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then the ultimate fate of the universe isn't just expansion, it's transformation. The universe as we know it will be pulled apart, atom by atom, until there is nothing left but an infinite void. But what happens after that? Does time continue? Does space still exist? Or does everything, including reality itself, simply end? Some physicists believe that the universe won't just vanish into nothingness. Instead, the final moment of the Big Rip could lead to a new form of existence, one that we can't yet understand. If space is stretched infinitely, could it become unstable? Could new forces emerge? Could the very fabric of reality collapse and give birth to something else? One possibility is that, as space stretches beyond any recognizable form, it tears open, creating a new kind of structure. If our universe is just one of many, then the destruction caused by phantom energy might not be an end but a bridge to something beyond. Imagine that space itself is like the surface of a balloon, stretching thinner and thinner as it expands. At some point, the tension becomes too great, and the balloon pops. But what happens after the pop? Does the material of the balloon disappear, or does it transform into something else? Some scientists speculate that, if space-time stretches far enough, it could break apart into fragments, creating entirely new universes. These new universes could exist in dimensions beyond our own, formed from the remnants of our own universe's final moments. If this is true, then the Big Rip isn't the end, it's a rebirth. This raises an even deeper question. If the destruction of our universe leads to the birth of something new, then has this happened before? Could it be that our own universe was born from the remains of a previous universe that was destroyed in a similar way? If so, then phantom energy might not be an accident. It could be part of a larger cycle, where universes are constantly being created and destroyed in an endless loop. But what if there's something even stranger happening? If phantom energy can stretch the fabric of space-time, then could it also stretch the laws of physics themselves? Right now, the fundamental forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, govern everything in the universe. But these forces exist within the framework of our current universe. If the universe is ripped apart, then those forces might no longer function the way we expect. This could mean that entirely new laws of physics emerge in the aftermath of the Big Rip. What if, instead of gravity pulling objects together, a new force pushes them apart? What if time itself stops behaving in a linear way? What if the very nature of existence changes into something completely unrecognizable? And if that happens, then what happens to consciousness? Right now, our thoughts, our memories, and everything we experience are tied to the structure of the universe. But if the universe itself is breaking apart, then could awareness be affected as well? Some theories suggest that consciousness might be more than just a byproduct of the brain. If thought is somehow linked to the underlying fabric of reality, then as the universe expands, could consciousness expand with it? Could it be that, instead of disappearing, awareness itself is stretched into something beyond human comprehension? Maybe the destruction of the universe isn't the end of intelligence, but its evolution into something else. But here's the most terrifying thought of all. If phantom energy is accelerating right now, and if we truly have no way of stopping it, then this process is inevitable. It might take billions of years, or it might be happening faster than we expect. But either way, the universe is heading toward a transformation that we can't escape. And that leaves us with one final question. What happens to us? If everything we know is destined to be torn apart, then do we simply cease to exist? Or will we become part of something new? If the phantom energy hypothesis is correct, then every star, every galaxy, and every atom in the universe is doomed to be ripped apart by an unstoppable force. But before we disappear, before everything is reduced to pure nothingness, there's a chilling thought we have to consider. What if this has already happened before? What if our universe was born from the destruction of another, one that was also consumed by phantom energy? If so, then the Big Rip might not be the end of everything, but rather a transition, a doorway from one universe to the next. Some scientists speculate that, just as black holes collapse into singularities, space-time itself might collapse in on itself once it stretches to an extreme point. If this happens, the remnants of our universe could give rise to something new, a rebirth of space, time, and the laws of physics. But if that's true, then what happens to information? In physics, there's a fundamental rule called the conservation of information, which suggests that information can never truly be lost, it can only be transformed. This means that every single event, every thought, every moment that has ever existed still exists in some form, even if we can no longer see it. So, if the universe is torn apart by phantom energy, where does all that information go? Some theorists propose that the information from our universe could be encoded into the very fabric of the next universe. This means that the things we think of as gone might actually persist in ways we can't yet understand. Perhaps, in some distant future, remnants of our universe will be decoded by another civilization, one that exists in a reality beyond our own. But let's take this a step further. If the Big Rip is just part of a cycle, if universes are constantly being born and destroyed, then could there be a pattern hidden in the chaos? What if there's a deeper structure to reality, one that we can't yet perceive? Some physicists have suggested that the multiverse, the idea that our universe is just one of many, might be governed by unknown rules that determine when and how universes are created. Could phantom energy be part of a larger mechanism, one that ensures the constant recycling of existence? This raises a terrifying possibility. If phantom energy has existed before, then could it be intelligent? Think about it. If the expansion of the universe is driven by an unknown force, one that governs the fate of entire realities, then could this force have some form of awareness? Could phantom energy itself be a kind of intelligence beyond our comprehension? We think of intelligence in human terms, thoughts, emotions, logic. But what if there's a different kind of intelligence, one that exists outside of time and space? One that creates and destroys universes as part of its natural function? And if that's the case, then we have to ask ourselves one final question. Is the universe expanding because it must, or because something wants it to? This video is for educational or entertainment purposes only, and information provided in the video may be incorrect. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more such amazing videos.